one very good. He pitched last time out. He pitched a great game.
And perhaps in the late innings, if Sparky needs him, the MVP and Cy Young Award winner Willie Hernandez, who has merely come through on 39 of 40 save possibilities in his Tiger tenure. Tony?
On the mound for the White Sox, and Tony La Russa's team, Rich Dotson, who can blow you away. He was disabled this spring. Here'll be the defense, which is playing very well for Tony La Russa. Rudy Law in left field, Darrell Boston in center, Harold Baines with the best start in his major league or minor league career in right field. Scott Fletcher, kind of a jack of all trades, very valuable at third. Asi Guillen, the rookie Venezuelan at shortstop. Julio Cruz, the switch hitter at second base, the acrobat, coming off knee surgery. Greg Walker, a pure hitter, the late Charlie Lau called him, at first base. Mark Hill catching Dotson today. Hill playing for Fisk. Fisk last night, he's been swinging the bat well, but he appeared to have injured that foot last night. I think it's interesting. Fisk could have been put in the DH spot today, but Ron Kittle, who is struggling, Tony La Russa sticking with him again today.
There's a possibility that this will be a faster White Sox game than usual. The statistics show that in the games that Hill catches, and there aren't that many of them, but when Hill catches rather than a deliberate Fisk, White Sox games average about a half hour shorter in time.
Dave Duncan, the pitching coach guru, talking to La Russa as we look at the umpires. Greg Kosk will be behind the plate today. Rick Reed at first base. Remember the name Tim McClellan? The George Brett Pine Tar incident? He was part of that. And the crew chief, Cuban-born Rich Garcia, down at third base.
Remember, at this time last year, Tony, the Tigers were making a shambles of the tough American League East. They were 25-4, and Toronto was 7 games over 500, and yet 7 games back, and the defending champion Orioles at that time were already 10 off the pace. Right now, the Tigers are 16-9, a half game back of Baltimore in the American League East. Toronto and Boston right there as well. It figures to be a 4-team race.
Well, Sparky Anderson said in spring training, yes, we have a better team than last year. I won't promise you we'll win it, but we'll be in contention. And Sparky feels that 5 teams will go into August in contention. A few will drop away along the wayside, and by September and maybe the end of it, still 3 teams left.
How about that story Sparky tells? Last year, the Tigers were 35-5 when Sparky bumped into a man who said he was from Dayton, Ohio. He said, Spark, I loved you when you managed the Reds. Watched you all the time. Say, what are you doing now? Sparky says, well, I manage the Tigers. The guy says, I don't follow the American League very much.
He has a chance to do something that the mathematical probabilities or possibilities are extremely high, or low for him to do, rather. Win 2 consecutive World Championships in each league. He did that in Cincinnati, 75-76. If he does it here, it's going to be a feat that can rank up with, well, some say the 56-game streak of DiMaggio, 2,000-plus straight games of Gehrig and others. Rich Dotson, he can be a very, very powerful pitcher.
He was on the disabled list at the start of the season, activated April 22nd. He had an inflamed elbow. He had a 3-0 lead last Sunday at Detroit against Berenguer, who will oppose him today, and the Tigers came back and won the game 4-3. Last season, Dotson was 14-15, but you'll recall that in 1983, and you see that his season was a Jekyll and Hyde act, 11-4 before the All-Star break, and 3-11 afterwards. But he was a Cy Young candidate in 1983 when he was 22-7. and won 16 of his last 18 decisions as the White Sox took 99 decisions on the year and won the American League West.
See Richard Dotson, that close-up that the master Harry Coyle, our director, got at him. Looks like he's going to the mean look. There are about 4 or 5 of these White Sox players are starting to grow beards. Darrell Boston in center field, Tim Lawler. He has an outstanding fastball, a 4-seamer that he can throw in the 90s. He can sink it. He can sail it or cut it. Outstanding straight change. Sometimes he has control problems with the breaking ball. He's kind of halfway between the curveball and slider. Called a slurve. If he can control that, he can just blow you away.
Up steps the American League's leading hitter, Lou Whitaker, at 344. Doubleheader day underway on NBC with a called strike. Kirby Puckett of the Twins is batting .339, and you'll also find Julio Franco and a resurgent Cecil Cooper among the league leaders. That hit him.
It's what this team will do. Dave Duncan, La Russa say, got to pitch inside. How about Whitaker? Hurt me, huh? Here, have your ball back. He just took it in the back. Remember we were here the last time? The Boston Red Sox, John McNamara, After a hitter or so had gotten hit on Friday night, McNamara challenged Fisk, would not come out and speak to a friend, La Russa. Now Whitaker may start stinging a little bit. May have knocked the wind out of him. The assistant trainer comes out.
Talking about
DeSalvo is the trainer. This is Bill Armstrong out as assistant.
And Sparky to check on Sweet Lou just in case.
Hit him in the back of the arm, did it? That's where they want the brushback pitch thrown. Pick the elbow of the player, the front elbow, and throw it right at the elbow. It's the pitch that a hitter expects to be moved off the plate. The one that's behind your head or at you, especially behind you, is the one that can get you in a lot of trouble and hurt somebody.
Dotson's been known to brush some people back. You'll recall the beanball war with the Orioles in the '83 playoffs. That game punctuated by the towering home run Eddie Murray hit off Dotson.
You might remember that Murray took a few steps toward Dotson, played with his finger, and from that time on, that league championship series was over with. Murray took charge.
Trammell now. Whitaker going on the first pitch, which is a strike, and he'll throw. Nobody covered.
There.
Cruz prevented it from going into center field by racing over and backhanding.
It was interesting. It was not a straight steal. He did not leave on Dotson's first move. It's called a delay steal. And what you try and do is just what Whitaker accomplished. He fooled the middle infielders. He did watch. Hill sees there's nobody there, so he lobs the ball down. You wait till the ball is in the hitting area, right before the hitter's going to swing, Trammell in this case. And what you try and do is, when the middle infielders are looking to pick the ball up off the bat, they lose sight of you, and he worked it perfectly. Billy Hunter was so great.
He's going for third, and Trammell bunts foul. Whitaker really is not that speedy, but he's a smart base runner, and that was his third stolen base of the season.
The Tigers are a team that will not take themselves out of a ball game, either with their defense, their base running, and I would not call them conservative. I think they're just very smart.
Later today, most of you will see the Royals and the Yankees from Kansas City. Some will see the Pirates and the Dodgers from L.A. That's low. 1-2.
Even with 2 strikes and behind in the count, Alan Trammell, that closed stance, has a little bit of a natural inside-out swing. He can turn on balls inside now, but he still may be shooting the opposite way to get Whitaker to third.
Grounded to short, and Lou will have to hold. Guillen looking him back and retiring Trammell with the throw to Walker.
Yeah, we've got 2 shortstops in the ball game. Trammell has missed just 1 inning. He has yet to make an error this season. Guillen has made 1, and he has played in all but 1 or 2 ball games.
As a team, the White Sox have committed the fewest errors in the American League and just 2 miscues in their last 10 games.
Good piece of pitching by Dotson. He got ahead in the count. He ran the sinker ball low and in, would not allow Trammell to hit it the opposite way.
There are no fielders stationed where Gibson put one last night, not just on the roof, but over it and into the parking lot and perhaps into another time zone. The pickoff gets away, but not far enough for Whitaker to advance.
An unusual move. He turned to his left clockwise instead of counterclockwise like most pitchers turn from the right side. Watch the move. Satchel Paige used to do this. I'm not that old. They tell me he used to do this. Look at Trammell. He pops right back up in case he can advance.
Again.
Got him. You betcha.
Whitaker didn't slide, went back in standing.
And that's what more guys are doing. More guys are going in standing up because if you come in sliding, a lot of guys used to go in face first. And the shortstop or second base would block you off. So he does a pop-up slide 2 times in a row. Whitaker did not expect consecutive pickoff attempts. They may have helped himself get out of the inning.
So Dotson to Guillen erases Whitaker. Now Gibson bats with 2 down and the base is empty.
Sometimes that happens when you're sitting on second base trying to steal signs. You lull yourself into sleep trying to steal the catcher's sign. Relay them to the hitter.
I said to Gibson around the batting cage, you should have saved that blast for the national audience today. He said, maybe I got something waiting for you this afternoon as well. The change for a strike.
At first, it was went out so fast, people thought it may have landed on the roof. But then they got a report from an electrician who was doing some work up there saying, folks, and it came to the press box, it went completely out. What do they say, 500 to 550 feet? That's the estimate. Right in that area, to the right of that land standard. It reminded me so much of Mantle's tape measure job that almost went out of Yankee Stadium, out of Billy Fish, because it was still rising when it left the ballpark.
1-2 pitch. 2-2.
I always mention Mickey, your idol, early in the telecast, because I know sooner or later you'll want to bring him up.
You know, it's amazing. Mantle has been retired, what, about 17 years, and yet he averages at least one mention a week from the two of us on NBC. We're thinking of you, Mickey. Gibson bounces one down toward first. Walker, who's become a good defensive first baseman, shovels it over to Dotson, and the side is retired. Nothing across in the Tiger first. Back to Comiskey Park in just a minute. Here's the lineup Juan Berenguer will face. Rudy Law, the leadoff man and left fielder. Scott Fletcher at third base, batting second. Harold Baines, uncharacteristically off to a hot start in right field, hitting third. Greg Walker, the first baseman and cleanup man. Ron Kittle in a disastrous slump as the DH. Darrell Boston, the center fielder. Mark Hill, the catcher. Julio Cruz at second base. And the exciting young shortstop, Ozzie Guillen.
Panamanian-born Juan Berenguer. He has a good fastball. In fact, it can be outstanding. Low to mid-90s at times. Snapping slider and curveball. And Billy Muffet, the new pitching coach, along with Sparky Anderson, felt that split-fingered fastball that he's been throwing last year may have been hurting his arm at least, possibly affecting his other pitches. The release point they felt might have been different. May have caused him a control problem. This is a hard kind of arm to give up on, Bob. He started with the Mets. He's been with Kansas City, Toronto. Not as important as the start of this year with the acquisition of Terrell and Wilcox back. Here's the defense that'll play behind him. The switch-hitting rookie in left, Nelson Simmons. Chet Lemon, Sparky says he's the best he's ever seen. Gibson and Wright, who can go get the ball, has trouble throwing at times. Tom Brookins, Alan Trammell, Whitaker at second. Evans at first made two great plays last night at first base. Parrish behind the plate and Berenguer on the mound. White Sox team that has difficulty scoring runs.
Rudy Law scored their only run last night, doubling in the first and coming home on a Greg Walker single. And he starts it off here.
And immediately Brookins will come tight at third, looking for a possible bunt. There's Brookins, and he'll creep a little bit closer as the pitch comes on its way.
Swinging on the first one, a little bloop. Whitaker back, Gibson in, and it falls between them. Now Law, who leads the team with 6 stolen bases, is aboard. One of the perplexing aspects of the White Sox 1984 season, and there were many of them, was the decline in stolen base totals for Rudy Law and Julio Cruz. Law stole 77 and 83, down to 29 a year ago, while Cruz dropped from 57 to 14.
Rudy Law started last season with a recurrent, pretty severe hamstring pull, and of course Cruz had knee surgery, may have had knee problems last year. Tony La Russa is a very aggressive manager. Some feel he gives outs up too easily. Hit and running and base running that is maybe a little bit wilder than it should be. Fletcher can hit the ball the right side.
Scott had 2 base hits last night. He's going. They bluff the bunt. And the throw from Parrish to Whitaker gets him. The second base umpire, Tim McClellan, wanted to make sure that Lou held on. It was a pretty good pitch to be running on, a slow curveball, but Parrish's throw was right on the money, and Rudy Law is out of there.
They just challenged one of the 3 best throwing arms among catchers in baseball. Tony Pena, Carter, and right here Lance Parrish, who may have more velocity than all of them. You can see how in the first inning, the White Sox messed up a play where nobody covered second base of the delayed steal. And that time you saw the man covering and a backup man.
Juan Berenguer very excited about the fact that today's game is being televised in his native Panama, where he is something of a national hero.
We have got that wind again. Remember, a couple of weeks ago we were here, Red Sox, we saw 6 home runs. There it is, blowing out to left field, that southern breeze. They're inland off Lake Michigan.
1-2 pitch. Curveball misses 2-2.
What Billy Muffet has done with his breaking ball, Behringer had that habit with the slider of starting the slider, trying to the middle of the plate, and it would run outside for a ball. He now said, you throw it hard enough, like Dave Steeb, Jack Morris, Petrie, you can start that slider or curveball at the hitter's elbow, and they will buckle. And it'll come over for a strike. With him, as hard as he throws it, it's not a hanging breaking ball.
Berenguer worked 4 times in relief this year before starting last Sunday at home against the White Sox. This is his second start of the season. The 2-2, and it holds there. Berenguer was used pretty much on a regular basis as a starter last year during the regular season by Sparky Anderson, but Sparky did not use him in any capacity in the postseason, not in any of the 3 games against Kansas City, nor in any of the 5 against San Diego.
He basically, under Sparky Anderson, has become a spot starter and long or middle reliever. You get a Walt Terrell from the Mets, who's pitched well. Wilcox coming back from the elbow problems.
And he fans Fletcher.
Sparky Anderson wants 6, maybe 7 innings from Behringer if he can get it. Last season, as Tiger staff, their starting pitchers really averaged just about 6 innings of pitching per start. Not because they could not have gone longer, but because of Bear, Lopez, and that man, Willie Hernandez. Sparky's always had the quick hook.
Baines now. Fouled off for strike 1.
Get yourself a new bat, Harold. Talk about sawing them off.
Look
there
at that.
It is.
Thing stuck in the grass as if it were a sword.
Harold Baines still got the knob and 6 or 8 other inches right there. Show you how Behringer throws a heavy ball. That fastball, belt high inside, was a cutter or a sailor. It ran in onto the fist. That's what it did to Baines' bat. Imagine what this time last year, Baines was hitting about 180 and had maybe 2 home runs. People have said if he could ever get a quick start, he's got MVP credentials. Went to spring training middle of February this year. Took a lot of extra hitting to get a quicker start.
0-2.
Tried to catch up with that fastball, still didn't.
Baines had a 14-game hitting streak at one stage this year.
It's a breaking ball down in the dirt, does he?
Breaking ball, and he went the opposite way with it. And it could be extra bases. Simmons slips on the warning track, and Baines is in at second.
Show you how great a hitter Harold Baines is, who's averaged 99 runs batted in over the last 3 years. He got 2 fastballs he couldn't catch up with. You figure, well, he's got to be looking fastball. He throws a breaking ball right where Parrish wanted it, and he goes the other way. He is a great hitter and an outstanding outfielder, too.
Parrish out to talk with Berenguer and perhaps remind him of the favor he did him earlier in the inning, erasing Rudy Law stealing. Otherwise, the White Sox might be on the board.
Well, La Russa manages a little bit opposite of what Earl Weaver's theory was. A great little manager from the Orioles. Weaver always talked about 27 precious outs. Don't give them up. They're precious.
Walker drills one up the middle. Baines will come home, and it's 1-0 White Sox. The throw cut off by Evans. Greg Walker was 3 for 4 and had the White Sox only RBI last night, and starts by driving one home this afternoon.
Joe Nosek, one of the best sign stealers in the game, coaching Walker at first. You know, this White Sox team, in their wins this year, they've come from behind a lot, and they've won a lot of ball games or scored a lot of runs after 2 are out.
The word slump is not sufficient to describe Ron Kittle over the last couple of weeks.
He is swinging at so many bad breaking balls outside the strike zone. Watching the ball game yesterday, like Steve Horner, statistician, noticed that he changed his stance 3 or 4 different times. Up on the plate, open stance, moved off, closed his stance. He is just a confused man.
The fielders have not been very busy when Kittle has been at the plate. Look at that. Either over the wall twice or he struck out 12 times in his last 16 plate appearances.
You can almost put money on it, though. He'll be near 30 home runs when the season ends. He's one of these sluggers that you take what you get. Strikeouts with power displays periodically.
Berenguer froze him with the curveball. 1-2.
Look out.
Berenguer is 30, 5'11", and a substantial 215.
Saw him in Wausau in the Midwest League as a 17-year-old kid. He must have weighed 165 pounds. And he could throw hard.
Full count now. Darrell Boston waiting his chance.
6 left-handed hitters in the lineup today for Tony La Russa.
There goes Walker. The ball is popped up in foul territory.
When they blow it
going
back.
over, and Parrish is also there, and Evans reaches over the dugout railing to make the catch.
When you're having a bad year, those are the things that happen. The wind blows a foul ball out of the stands back in.
The White Sox lead it 1-0 after 1. Rich Dotson has been given a 1-0 lead as he prepares to work in the second and face Parrish, Simmons, and Grubb. Dotson was originally Angels property, and prior to the 1978 season, he was acquired along with Bobby Bonds and Thad Bosley in a deal which sent Brian Downing and 2 pitchers, Chris Knapp and Dave Frost, to the Angels.
He is still learning, Dotson, just 26. Season at Hoyt, 124. Hoyt now at San Diego. He was 22-7, a very high one-loss, highest one-loss percentage in baseball that year.
Parrish has led the Tigers in homers each of the last 4 seasons. Curveball for a strike. Belted 33 to go with 98 RBIs a year ago.
There are a lot of Tigers, even though they ran through everybody last year, did not have their best years. Harris was one of them. He was down in the low 200s hitting. Gibson, they feel, can do better. Dotson wondering about that last call.
On the corner. The Tigers have some fellas on their team you wouldn't want to cross in a rumble. Nelson Simmons looks like he's been pumping iron since the age of 3. And Parrish used to be a bodyguard. There's Simmons on deck. Parrish was once a bodyguard, albeit briefly, for Tina Turner.
He and Brian Downing of the Angels do a lot of lifting of free weights in the offseason. Something Sparky Anderson didn't like at first, said it'll tie you up. Now he lets him do whatever he wants. Some of the years he's had for him.
Full count. Sparky's club has won 5 in a row, and they're 9-3 on the road this year, the best road mark in the majors at this early stage. Still 3-2 last year, and it's more significant, obviously, over the full season. The Tigers were 51-29 on the road, the best road record in the major leagues.
Senor Lopez protege. Al Lopez sitting down in Tampa, one of the great managers of all time. Grew up in the same area Tony La Russa did. The barrio in Tampa as Lopez. You know, Dotson's strikeout to base on ball ratio, even in his good year, was not very good. You look at his 22-7 year. In 83, 137 strikeouts, 106 walks. Last year, 120 strikeouts, 103 walks. He does have the power pitches to blow you away when he gets in trouble. If you start walking 4 and 5 a ball game, it's going to back up against good teams like Detroit, because they're a pretty patient ball club hitting. Dave Duncan's book, keeping track of every pitch, where it's hit, location in the strike zone, where it is. They feed it into a computer. They position their defenses. White Sox are a very progressive organization in that regard. You can overprogram your players, though. That's the negative side of it.
Parrish has now spoiled 4 3-2 pitches.
You get to using the computers too much, Bob, and the next thing you know, you program your players. They don't react to the ball out of the pitcher's hands or off the bat. There's a man who's programming some things into the computer. I don't know if he's got a pipeline down to the bench to position defenses. They've done that also.
Curveball catches Parrish looking. First strikeout for Dotson. And he fed Parrish a pretty steady diet of off-speed breaking balls.
He's always had a great straight change. That may have been a change off his breaking ball. And Dave Duncan believes, I think, like Johnny Sain, the Atlanta pitching coach, if you can throw breaking balls over the plate or off-speed stuff, when you're behind in the count, you can win in the bigs.
Ball 1 to Simmons, who was the talk of the Tiger camp as he hit 7 spring training home runs, then had a rib injury, which put him on the disabled list at the start of the regular season.
Sparky working Simmons in. Left field today as a DH at times. Chris Patera, the switch hitting, was a second baseman, now moved to third base. Although he will play some second base this year, probably tomorrow.
2-0 pitch. On the inside corner, 2-1. If Patera plays second base tomorrow, is that a day off for Whitaker, or does Lou play some third?
I really think what they're going to do is, no, I don't think Lou will play. I think he'll have a day off. I think Sparky figures 162. You better not run your team in the ground by July. You've got to play your entire bench. And he's already DH Sanchez, the kid who's helped him with some home runs. He's using his 25-man roster, which you have to do. He's got some bench players. Remember last year, that great start, 35-5? He was getting game-winning RBIs from Bergman, Rusty Kuntz. They were all contributing early.
Walker down at first, takes it himself. 2 gone on the Tigers' second.
You mentioned earlier about Walker becoming a better first baseman. He went out to the West Coast 2 off seasons ago, again this off season, to Al Vermeil's school. Agility, quickness, strength. Dick Vermeil's brother, now the analyst for football for CBS. In fact, Vermeil was in spring training with the entire team, teaching them how to run and stretching and lifting, and it's a very, very comprehensive program.
John Grubb, obviously a better hitter than the early season 206 shows. One of the game's best pinch hitters. The DH today takes a ball. One and one. Tony, is that coincidence, or could there be a reason for that? Why some guys might hit more home runs with the bases empty?
I have a theory. I don't know for sure if it's right. I think some hitters time the delivery of a pitcher out of the windup because it's a longer delivery and because of the hip turn than they do pitching out of the stretch. I think Yogi Berra was the opposite. Yogi Berra, with that relaxed swinging the bat across the plate, liked to hit with men on base, was so successful because he liked to hit off guys pitching from the stretch. Something about the long delivery, I'm not saying it bothered Yogi because he hit either way. But I think Grubb may be one of those guys. In fact, there are some guys I think you should pitch from the stretch all the time because they don't hit as well. And I think if the computers could program that stuff, you could say, hey, look, this guy with men on base doesn't hit well for a reason. And maybe it's because the guy's coming out of the stretch.
You have a few guys, all of them relief pitchers, who work from the stretch exclusively, but more as a matter of comfort than strategy. Suter does it. Stoddard does it with the Padres, formerly with the Cubs.
And they are so successful, that may add fuel to what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm right, but it may mean these guys are successful because he's got an edge, because the delivery's shorter and quicker.
Grubb had a half swing at it. Dotson records his second strikeout of the inning. A 1-2-3 second, 1-0 White Sox. Baseball's oldest park Comiskey Park in Chicago opened in 1910.
Got to be careful how you word that. It's a matter of semantics, but you know, it may be the oldest structure, but back in Detroit in 1901, they were playing on that site. They used to call it Bennett Park, named after a catcher. Art Bennett, I think his name was, who tragically had both legs cut off, and they named the park after him in 01. Then they named it Navin, and now Briggs Stadium.
Tiger
Stadium. They were playing at that same site in Detroit back in 01.
Probably with just a rope to bound the outfield, though. Darrell Boston bloops one foul. Brookins chases after it and can't handle it.
Oh, look out.
Into the camera well he goes.
First one over there just about the umpire, but Tony La Russa also making sure he's not hurt. What a try by Brookins.
Applause from the fans and an 8.5 from the judges. Look at this move.
It wasn't hit very hard, and then he keeps on going. I give him a 9. Look at that one-handed handstand. Here comes Brookins right at our low third base camera. Good camera work, guys. Wow.
That camera was on autopilot toward the end of that play. Kenny bailed out into row 3 back there.
I'll tell you one thing Sparky Anderson has is a lot of guys who want to play, and there's a good competition for jobs. Good shot.
1-1 pitch to Boston. Got the outside corner, 1-2.
You notice Sparky, a much looser manager this year. He runs his pitchers in the outfield. He's always been very accessible to the media. He seems to be enjoying this. Last year, he knew he had something to prove. Fired by Cincinnati. I think he even said, I had some self-doubts whether I could manage again or not. So the World's Championship kind of reproved or reestablished his ego.
And the 2-2. Another little bloop. Brookins isn't gun-shy, but it's out of play. And Kenny must feel like somebody in the back end of a shooting gallery. He anticipated a nice day in the rocking chair at the third base camera.
Spread out down there, guys, in that well, so they can't get you all one shot.
Once more, the 2-2. Struck him out with a high fastball.
Berringer has that easy, like a rocking chair delivery, and the ball just explodes. You start swinging that pitch above the belt or shoulder high, you can cause yourself a lot of problems at the plate because you're never going to catch up to it.
Mark Hill has had only 18 at-bats, 2 hits, so he's at 111. Day game after a night game, and he fills in for Carlton Fisk.
He's an outstanding receiver. Good thrower. Sequence of pitches. Fools a lot of hitters. Doesn't get in a rut behind the plate. Got a young catcher in Joel Skinner, Bob Skinner's son. I believe he's back in Denver again, but he's one of their catchers in the future, along with a kid named Karkovice. Wow, if he gets that over, that's what you call a paralyzer. Looking for the 92 3-mile-an-hour fastball, and that pitch just paralyzes you.
You could see Hill's knees buckle. 1-2. Comes back with it again and misses as we pause briefly for station identification on the NBC television network.
This is WOC-TV in Davenport, the sports leader in the Quad Cities.
Ball is lined into right center field. Gibson got a late break, but it hangs up for him, and he makes the catch.
Well, Gibson has that, and Sparky's the one who said it, that Mickey Mantle type of speed and power. He outruns baseballs, and Al Kaline 2 springs ago, the great Hall of Famer, now a broadcaster for the Tigers, said, I want you to play deep and be aggressive and come in on everything. Don't let him hit a ball over your head. It's helped his throwing and everything else, too, because he's always charging the ground balls and fielding through the ball, and it's helping his throwing.
Switch hitter Julio Cruz has always been a much more dangerous batsman from the right side. This year he's hitting 130 left-handed and 316 right-handed. A 185 composite, high for ball 1.
Tony La Russa was upset with Cruz last week. He benched him a ball game, felt that his lack of hitting or offensive production was bothering his defense, so he came out in the papers and said, I'm going to bench him. I didn't think he ran after a couple of balls.
It hits the bag. It's a fair ball. And Evans can't pick it up in time. Cruz is safe and may have hurt himself.
Bad knee again. He had that knee surgery, missed a good deal of spring training, and then he bruised it again. And I don't understand, if he's got a bad knee, why you want to slide on it. I don't know why you want to slide into first base at all anyway, unless it's on a tag play. But I guess he was afraid there might be a collision. Now Herm Schneider, the trainer, comes out. And I'm assuming that's the same knee he had the surgery on. Ball hits the bag, pops up, and watch Evans. Behringer's there trying to hold. Cruz trying to avoid the collision, slides on the knee. I don't know if he's going to be able to continue. Don't know. I think Evans probably was going to get that ball. It wasn't hit that hard. Boy, he really slid hard, didn't he? Banged into that bag. Now the pop-up slide, the knee gave out.
Darrell Evans couldn't make this play, but he turned in a pair of beauties last night. On a squeeze play, he barehanded a bunt and threw to the plate. A bunt by Ozzie Guillen, and threw to the plate to erase Darrell Boston on a bang-bang play, and then later he made a backhanded stop to steal a hit from Oscar Gamble. Cruz is going to stay in. You see, Tony, as you can hear in the background, the PA man even has given up. He's calling him Ozzie Guillen. I told you when we were here earlier in the season, you're fighting a losing battle. You want to be a purist. I know the proper pronunciation is Ozzie Guillen, and I'm going with you on this, but we're going to wind up the only two guys in America pronouncing it Guillen.
Wrong. Luis Salazar, who's from Venezuela. Tony Armas from Venezuela. Luis Leal from Venezuela. And there are a few others around from Venezuela, about 6 or 7 Venezuelans. They're going to tell you it's Guillen. Manny Trio of Venezuelan, because of where the double L is, and it's Trio. It's not Trillo. But he says, and that's what we're going to go by, I want it Guillen.
Tony Kubek, a veteran of the New York Yankees and the Berlitz School, knows that this telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball, may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
My Spanish teacher at Bayview High School, Miss Miller, would be proud of me.
I took French in high school for 3 years, and I still couldn't ask for directions down the street when I finally found myself in Paris.
But you do know how to pronounce Roberge.
Berthe Roberge.
I'll tell you, this kid can play. You can see the brace that he's wearing to try and protect not only the ligament or cartilage that he had the arthroscopic surgery on, give himself a little brace, but affords a little padding when he slides. This kid right here hitting, he's got a chance to be a player. I don't know if he'll ever be as good as Tony Fernandez, the Toronto shortstop, but he has got some talent, Guillen.
Strike one to him. First couple of weeks, he was around 300. He's just won for his last 13 and has plummeted to 244. 2 out and a man on. Outside, ball 1.
Tony La Russa feels he'll make here's a score, Mets 1, Philadelphia nothing. How about Gooden last night again? Overpowering. Toronto 2, Seattle nothing. Damaso Garcia with 4 base hits yesterday. His bat gets going. It's going to mean a lot. Montreal 1, Atlanta nothing. Some rain in Montreal.
But after a bad pitch, fastball up in his eyes.
Talking about the tradition of Venezuelan shortstops here. You can start back early 50s. Chico Carrascal, and then go to Hall of Famer Luis Aparicio. Now Guillen. It's going.
There goes the runner on the 1-2, and that's a base hit. But Cruz slid into second. Let's see if this gives Gibson a crack at him at third. The throw is offline.
What a decoy by Trammell. Trammell went down at the bag as though he was going to get a little toss for a force out from Whitaker. I'll tell you, one of the best in the business at this is Marty Barrett up in Boston. Marty Barrett will fake pop-ups and yell, I've got it. Cruz didn't find the ball. What they try and teach is, not in all situations, straight steal, you want to go right through the bag. But they teach, you get halfway down, you look over your shoulder. If you can do it without breaking stride, you know where the ball is. But he made third, and that's all he would have gotten anyway.
The subplots and subtleties that make baseball such a fascinating game, that was a moment of revenge for Alan Trammell because Guillen decoyed him
last night
on a bloop base hit last night. Had him dancing back and forth. He was at second base. He started back toward first. The rookie made the veteran look foolish on that occasion.
It was a lesson that never trust a middle infielder.
Law singled and was caught stealing in the first. Pitch out, nothing on. The White Sox broke up the law firm this year, sent Vance Law to Montreal. Cruz is at third, and Guillen is at first with 2 outs in the bottom of the second, and the White Sox leading at 1-0. The Sox already have 5 hits. They had 3, one of them a double in the first inning, but because Law was caught stealing, they got just 1 run out of it.
Behringer, excuse me, Bob, had about 40 pitches, but for a power pitcher like him, that's not unusual. He strikes out quite a few and throws a lot of pitches. He's the kind of guy you've got to stay out there and let him pitch out of trouble on occasion.
He hasn't walked anybody yet, but is behind on Law 3-0. Fastball at the letters for a strike.
One thing Parrish doesn't want Behringer to do is let up. He didn't on 3-0, and I'm sure he won't on 3-1 either. I would have just with 2 outs, couple men on, just aim the ball and say, here, hit it.
He walked him. The bases are loaded for Scott Fletcher.
That bring a trip from the new pitching coach, Billy Muffet, who's got quite a job. There's Muff replacing the guy, Roger Craig, who retired. Said he might come back if a managerial job was offered to him and it was the right job. But I'll tell you that it's hard to replace a Roger Craig. In fact, the pitchers kid about it. Jack Morris and stuff say he's the only guy we had who can handle Sparky Anderson. Forget about handling the pitching staff. He knew how to handle Sparky when things weren't going right.
Sparky's got some new lieutenants this year. Muffet for Craig, and after Gates Brown left the team in a salary dispute, the hitting coach, they picked up the former Cincinnati Reds great Vada Pinson.
Still got Trzaskowski, still got Gramis. Billy Consolo, his high school friend. This guy is a tough little hitter with men on base. He will battle you till the end. And some people feel up to this stage of the season that he's been their most valuable player, playing 3 different infield positions.
And he drops one into right field with Gibson coming on, and it falls. 1 run is in. Here's Gibson's throw to the plate. 2 runs are in. It skips by Parrish, and the other runners each move up a base.
There's going to be an error charge. I don't know. Usually they give it to the outfielder. This ball hit, and it kind of scooted into the grass is very thick here. The ball scooted. So once again, they do it 2 outs. There's Bill Scherer begins to throw. So on the 2 runners advancing from second to third, Behringer was backing the play up, but the ball scooted by him also. Parrish didn't do a real good job trying to block it, and then when Behringer was backing up the play a little too close, it got by him to the wall. I would assume because nobody touched it, they'll give the error to Kirk Gibson, which is not really the fairest error, but they're going to do it.
The error is charged to Gibson in right field. He also committed an error last night as he dropped a fly ball.
So they continue. The White Sox have been good this year, scoring after 2 outs.
And with 2 out, this is the way this uprising began. Julio Cruz got an infield single when his little bounder hit first base and carried him away from Darrell Evans. Ozzie Guillen with a soft liner to right for a hit. Rudy Law walked, and then Fletcher bloops one to right. There hasn't been a ball hit hard, but 2 runs are home, and runners are at second and third. The White Sox lead up to 3-0.
Berenguer, when he overthrows that breaking ball, on occasion will bounce one, and you've got to be alive for that guy at third base.
1-2.
Milbeck, 1 year had a chance when he owned this ball club or was part owner. A chance to pick people first round of draft choice like Molitor, Scott Sanderson, a number of other outstanding prospects. He went with Baines. They're all outstanding players, but Baines was the guy that he wanted. He got him.
Bounced up the middle. Whitaker can't get to it. 2 more runs will score, and the White Sox lead 5-0. Baines is 2 for 2, a double and a single.
No balls, 2 strikes the first time up. Baines took a low curveball, rifle in the left field corner. This time, Berenguer looked like he tried to sink a fastball. Baines went it right up the middle. 1 ball, 2 strikes. So, Sparky Anderson will make the trip to make the change now.
And if Berenguer's day ends here, and it will, since Muffet was out to the mound earlier in the inning, he'll be saying to himself, they didn't hit a single shot off me in this inning. Little bouncer that snuck under Whitaker's glove here. Couple of bloops, soft liner, a walk thrown in. Here's the one that sent Berenguer to the showers and sent the White Sox in front, 5-0. As Scherer gets ready, we'll break away.
Here's Baines. RBI single, 1 and 2 off Berenguer that got him out of the ballgame. Look how hard it is in front of home plate. There's a 3rd generation of groundskeepers here. Roger Bossard. Gene Bossard, still a consultant. Remember the 59 Go-Go Sox, Aparicio, Landis, Rivera, Torgeson, Fox. They tailored the lines for bunts. Had the grass short on the left side, high on the right side for Fox.
Walker pops it up, and Scherer's going to get him out of the inning with 2 pitches, but not before. The White Sox score 4 times, everything after 2 are out, and we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. Last Sunday, Rich Dotson had a 3-0 lead at Detroit and couldn't hold it. Tigers rallied and won 4-3. He's up 5-zip here as we go to the 3rd.
There's little quirks in this game, huh? With 2 outs, a ball hits the first base bag. It looked like a sure 3rd out. You throw a walk in there to Rudy Law. And those things multiplied. Berenguer was throwing the ball pretty well. Big hit. Scotty Fletcher. Right field with 2 outs. Mark Hill's job right now, 1. Keep Dotson in the strike zone, getting ahead of hitters.
Evans off to a slow start at 175.
Changeup. Woo.
One of the great sights in the Tigers' victory celebration at the end of the World Series last year. The rains were pouring down shortly after the game concluded, and there was little Nicky Evans, Darrell's 3-year-old son, in his miniature Tiger uniform, running around in the mud, celebrating, jumping up and down on his dad's teammates.
Darrell Evans also made the comment that there were a lot of great players like Ernie Banks and others who never got in the World Series, and he was happy for all of them.
Walker with a nice play on a ball hit like a bullet, and he underhands to Dotson for the out.
So Dotson got behind 2-1, and throwing a first pitch changeup strike. And then they sit on that fastball. That agility we're talking about, that's what Al Vermeil's program's all about out on the West Coast. In fact, they had Roy Smalley. He was a White Sox member through spring training. They went to Minnesota. He lost so much weight, regained so much of his agility, they're going to start him off until he hurt himself at shortstop for the Twins. Techniques they're using these days to prolong players' careers, the surgery on knees and shoulders, just amazing.
This guy at the plate, Chet Lemon and Don Baylor of the Yankees, the 2 active major leaguers most likely to be fitted for a suit of armor. Breaking ball misses 1-1. Lemon has led the American League in times being hit by a pitch 3 of the last 4 years. And Baylor is approaching 200 bruises lifetime.
They got one sitting in the dugout for the White Sox, too. Pudge Fisk, who take a lot in the back. Lemon doesn't stand that close to the plate, but you'll see with that front foot how he throws the shoulder and he kind of strides a little bit into the ball. And once he's striding in, just a short stride, he can't recover and get out of the way.
Called strike.
And they know also that to get him out, you've got to pitch the ball inside to him. Belt tie or above if you can, because he likes to get those arms out.
Chet is looking for his first home run in 1985. He clouded 22 of them last year.
And when Sparky, when he first got here, he moved Lemon out of center field, put him in right. He admitted it's the worst mistake he'd ever made in baseball. And so he said, got him back in center field, moved him out of the 3 spot in the lineup, take pressure off him.
Reaches for one and taps it down to Walker, unassisted for the second out. Now it'll be Brookins with 2 out and nobody aboard, top of the 3rd, and the White Sox leading 5-0.
Well, they have 5 or 6 guys for Detroit playing third base last year. Garbey there, he played about 20 games and made about 7 or 8 errors. They had to get him out of there. Howard Johnson played about 108 games down there, most of anybody.
Castillo.
Castillo, who may be as good a defensive third baseman as they got, along with Brookins. Evans played there. Sparky Anderson made the statement. Howard Johnson's our third baseman of the future here. Wasn't too long afterwards, he was in the Mets uniform. Sparky has what he calls his 48-hour rule he put in the beginning of last year. Whatever I say to the media, I can retract it within 48 hours and change my mind.
1-1 pitch. 1-2. Dotson, you may recall, was part of that White Sox kiddie corps about 5 years ago and included Britt Burns, Steve Trout, Ross Baumgartner, and Rich Wortham. Dotson was the only right-hander in the group. Wortham and Baumgartner never achieved significant big league success, but Burns, of course, is doing just fine with the White Sox, and Trout across town with the Cubs.
Here's the experiment with Britt Burns is over. Last year in the bullpen, this year starting and pitching well.
Curve misses, full count.
And when you look at the White Sox staff, and you see Dotson with 1 win, or let's see, Dotson with no wins, and Bannister with just 1. He got this from the last week. How could they could even be playing 500 baseball?
Guillen just glides smoothly to his left and throws Brookins out. Through 3 innings, Dotson has faced the minimum 9 batters, hasn't allowed a hit, did hit 1 man with a pitch. We'll be right back. Ron Kittle is the DH today. A couple of weeks ago, Tony, we were here, White Sox hosting the Red Sox. Kittle was in left field, and on this drive by Tony Armas, he injured his right shoulder, and subsequently his replacement in left field in that game, Jerry Hairston, also had a collision with the wall and damaged a knee. They say they're going to put more padding on that fence out there in left field.
Well,
Kittle fouls it off.
They talked about padding the entire wall. He just happened to hit one of those poles, which is padded, but those are very attractive seats. It's kind of like a picnic area down there. Eat underneath the stands. Bill Veck, I believe, put that in. That shoulder it was initially, it was bothering him swinging. He says it doesn't bother him anymore, but so many times you alter your swing. But let's face it, he's led the American League in strikeouts the last 2 years. He's going to get strikeouts in a bunch of times. But he's also, the last 2 years, drove in 174 runs and hit 67 home runs. There aren't too many who've done that.
I believe the last player, at least in the American League, to hit more than 30 home runs in each of his first 2 seasons was Rudy York with the Tigers in the late 1930s. Kittle checked his swing, and it bounces away, 1-2.
Rudy York might have been the first Major League advanced scout. Casey Stengel used to have him go around ahead of us. Casey might have been ahead of his time. Steal signs, steal pitches. Tell guys like Manlin, Scourin, Yogi what was coming.
Some guys don't like to know what's coming.
No, Moose did. Moose Gardner was here for a fantasy camp yesterday. Didn't care for it all because he'd know it was a curveball. You could bounce it 4 feet in front of the home plate. Moose knew what it was. He had trouble finding out where it was. He could hit. And Billy Muffet, the pitching coach, said when Moose came walking across the field, he said, "That guy just killed me," and he hit the ball at the middle so hard. Moose killed a lot of guys. He had a lot of 300 seasons.
I remember watching Moose as a kid play at Yankee Stadium, and he hit the ball with such power to left and right center, and obviously that wasn't the most hospitable ballpark for that kind of hitting. Cost him a lot of extra base hits. Slow curveball, and Kittle is a strikeout victim for the 20th time in 43 at-bats this year.
The basketball expression, that's become a baseball expression. He backdoored him. Backdoor breaking ball. Starts out.
There was his boyhood idol. Patterned himself after the great Oriole and Yankee outfielder. Fooled as Scherer took a lot off that one. 1-2.
Remember Steve Hamilton, the Scherer, not just because of his size, but his delivery reminds you of Steve Hamilton? Comes from, he doesn't have the Folly floater yet. But when he comes from the side and throws that roundhouse curveball, he will eat left-hand hitters up.
He's not quite as tall as Hamilton, who was about 6'7", but he is lanky like Big Steve, and he has that little hesitation in the middle of his delivery that reminds you of Hamilton.
There's that curve again.
So he fans Kittle in Boston to start the White Sox third. Now it's Mark Hill.
See, Steve Hamilton was the coach for Walt Terrell, who pitched last night. Coached him down in Kentucky, coached the baseball team. Western Kentucky or Eastern Kentucky, one of those.
Somewhere in the bluegrass state.
It might even be Central Kentucky. It might be in between Western and Eastern.
We'll send somebody to check it out and have the full details next week. The 1-0 pitch.
It's fun to see good middle infielders move. You see Trammell, he saw the slow curveball sign, and when the ball left Scherer's hand, he was leaning to his right, trying to cut that hole off.
Comes back with a fastball and puts it on the outside corner for a strike. Hey, you can't toss them up there much more tantalizingly than some of the slow breaking balls Scherer has delivered in this inning. 3-1. Full count.
Well, Sparky wants Scherer for a reason. Not just for blowout games like this, but you get in the middle of the lineup sometimes, or middle of a game where you need that. You got two left-handed hitters stacked together. You need that left-hander to come in and just get you through an inning, get a couple left-handed hitters out, which he does so well.
Well hit again into right center field by Hill. Lemon closing ground on it, and the man Sparky Anderson says is even better than the fella he had in Cincinnati. Cesar Geronimo with the Big Red Machine Clubs makes the catch to complete a 1-2-3 Chicago third. Watch Chet Lemon track down this drive off Mark Hill's bat. He's got it in his sights all the way. One-hands it. Remember the play he made in Game 3, I think it was, of the World Series last year? Drive by Terry Kennedy to dead center field. Twisted and turned in every direction and finally took it about 430 feet from home plate at Tiger Stadium. We go to the fourth, and here's Tony.
Lou Whitaker jumps on the first pitch from Rich Dotson. Darrell Boston pounds the right thigh, 1 out. Whitaker, the only base runner off Dotson in this ball game, hit by a pitch, stole second. Was picked off second base by Dotson to Ozzie Guillen, the shortstop. White Sox 5. The Tigers nothing. Now it's Alan Trammell. Dotson has 2 strikeouts, 6 ground ball outs, so he's got a little bit of a sinker going for him today. And when you watch Lemon roam for that ball in that replay and end that last inning, boy, this used to be a great pitcher's ballpark. Last year, 180 home runs hit in this park. More than any other park in baseball, Major League Baseball. 103 hit by the White Sox. When it was first designed back in 1910, the architect consulted with Ed Walsh, a former pitcher. Trammell to Guillen. Some wondered whether Ozzie Guillen's arm would be strong enough to be a Major League shortstop. You've seen him make some good throws from the hole. He usually throws just as hard as he has to. He did it just then. But at one time, it was 362 down each line. and 420 to dead center field. And before they put that scoreboard up, electronic scoreboard, I guess the early 50s, and then they added to it. Here are the present dimensions, the power alleys, wind blowing out again today. But the wind used to come off that lake at certain times of year and kill anything at the center field. Very few balls hitting those center field stands. Kirk Gibson with 2 outs. He grounded out in the first. 1 strike. Deep center field, guys like Jimmy Fox, Hank Greenberg, Alex Johnson, Dick Allen, Richie Zisk, and Tony Armas last year off Tom Seaver. Only 6 balls hit in the deep center field bleachers. 1-1 to Gibson.
Well, the one Gibson hit last night, had it been hit straight away, would have made those bleachers with ease. What a rocket he launched.
Tom Seaver's given up some long ones since he's come over, huh? Rupert Jones hit one over the roof last year off him. Armas to center field last year, and Gibson out of the park yesterday. Dotson misses outside. He gets behind. 2 balls and a strike. All 5 White Sox runs have come after 2 out. Walker, single home Baines in the first. Fletcher, 2 RBIs after 2 outs with the bases loaded. Then Baines drove home 2 more. So it's 5-0. Sox have 7 base hits. Tigers looking for their first one.
It's not just that the runs themselves were scored after 2 outs, but the rallies each began with 2 out and nobody on base.
2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs to Kirk Gibson. A lot of debris. Or is it 3-2? Now, La Russa's coming out. The home plate umpire, Greg Kosk, is signaling 3-2. La Russa says, wait a second, check with another umpire who's got an indicator. And usually they do. He thinks it's 2-2. He's going to go down now to the first base umpire, Rick Reed, and say, wait a second. Or did they call a ball because he went to his mouth on the dirt surface? They may have done that, and that may be what La Russa's talking about. Dotson may have put his fingers in his mouth, and there is no permission on that warm day today, and he may have gone to his mouth on the dirt surface, and they called the ball. So instead of 2-2, it probably goes to 3-2. Let's watch the home plate umpire, Greg Kosk. Looks at the indicator. It's 2-2. He's given 3-2. Now what's La Russa doing? Going down to the crew chief, Rich Garcia third, saying, wait a second, I think you got the count wrong. Has a word with Rich Garcia, keeps going to the dugout. But Greg Kosk punches up the left hand with 3 balls, right hand with 2. And that's what it is. Full to Gibson with 2 outs. I thought it was 2-2 also. Anyway, he got him. It's a moot point.
Tony, Steve Horn just told us that a ball was called because Dotson went to his mouth, but he comes back and fans Gibson.
All right, bottom of the 4th. That's where we're going.
Trust us, that is Tony La Russa behind the bar and Sparky Anderson, of course, on the other side. These are the managers with the most seniority with their present clubs in the American League. Sparky by just about a month more than Tony La Russa.
Sparky Anderson, who took that Cincinnati team 5 times in league championships. 4 times to World Series, and again last year that World Championship. When you ask Sparky to compare last year's Tiger team, the Cincinnati Reds, Big Red Machine, 75, 76s, he said it's close. He said, I think this team may be better because we have better pitching. Morris, Petrie, Wilcox, stuff. He said, but when you start talking about Bench, who won 10 Gold Gloves, and Morgan consecutive MVPs, and Rose with what he's doing, this team's got a ways to come yet. Cruz fights off a pitch, 1 strike. Whitaker should have him. 1 out. We're in the bottom of the 4th. White Sox lead it 5-0. Now it'll be Ozzie Guillen, the number 9 hitter. Guillen in the middle of that 4-run rally. The 2 are out. Julio Cruz singled on the ball and hit the first base bag. It would have been an out. Guillen hit one off the fist to right field. Rudy Law walked. Fletcher single to right. 2 RBIs. Baines single to center. Bouncer over the pitcher's head. Scher will have to hurry. 2 outs. Scher with that sweeping curve and a slider and also a pretty good sinker.
Since he came in with 2 outs in the second and got the last out of the inning, on a Greg Walker pop-up. There's really been only one ball hit well against him. Mark Hill sent Chet Lemon almost to the warning track in right center for his fly ball.
When Rich Dotson hits the pitching rubber in the top of the fifth, he'll still be riding a no-hitter. He's allowed just the one base runner. Hit batsman Whitaker. He picked him off at second. Rudy Law has singled, caught stealing, walked, and scored a run. Fouled off out of play. The Mets 2, Philadelphia nothing. That ball game in the fourth. Juan Berenguer, the starter, breezing along. Had good stuff. Little check swing on the big breaking ball. Trammell's going to have to hurry. Off balance throw. Law's out. So, 6 in a row had been set down by Bill Scherer. It'll bring up Fletcher. Trammell yet to make an error this season. That's the play that one and the one deep in the hole. The off-balance throw. Remember last year he had that shoulder problem. Was DH for a while. Sat out for a while. He's had knee surgery. He's had a little arthroscopic surgery to his shoulder. The thing you fear, shortstop is coming over the top. Throw as many balls, and well, the only one who throws more every day is that catcher. A ball to Scott Fletcher. A big single with the bases loaded and 2 outs, driving home 2. Baines fouled it up. White Sox 5, Tigers nothing.
Tony, Fletcher's feelings were naturally wounded a little bit when Ozzie Guillen took his starting shortstop's job in spring training, but Tony La Russa assured him that he would get plenty of work at third, sometimes second, and occasionally at short, and over 300 at-bats for the season, and it looks like La Russa was right.
Going. Breaking ball. Pear says forget it. A slow breaking ball that Rudy Law, first base, had about 6 steps before Scherer released the ball. Parrish didn't even bother to throw.
So Law was caught stealing in the first, but swipes one here. He's working on a perfect day at the plate. He's got a couple of singles and a walk.
Some people feel that Scotty Fletcher should be the everyday second baseman. Julio Cruz has that big contract, multi-year. It's hard to sit a guy down. He was primarily a defensive player and was an outstanding base stealer. But hard to sit a guy down who's making $700,000 to $800,000 a year.
You look at what Cruz did last year. He stole just 14 bases. His previous career low was 43, and he made a career-high 18 errors.
2-2 to Fletcher. He went after a bad pitch. He's mad at himself. So they strand Rudy Law down at second base after 4 here in Comiskey Park. Sox 5, Tigers nothing. We'll be back after these messages from your local station. The Greek, Alex Kravis, down at third. What a smooth feeler he was. Took a break from following Sparky Anderson around when he tried to manage in Milwaukee. Said he didn't like it. First base, Vada Pinson. 18 major league seasons. Hit .286 with over 2,700 base hits and 305 stolen bases. Could he run? Ooh. And hit. 5-0. Rich Dotson, through 4, has not allowed the Tigers a base hit. He'll face Parrish, Simmons, and Grubb. Misses with a breaking ball. Parrish struck out in the second. Dotson has 3 strikeouts. Hit a batter, hadn't walked anybody. Full foul. A ball and a strike. Nice crowd here on a very warm, breezy day in Chicago. Got to have 25,000 or more. Park at one time before fire regulations, I think they sat in the mid or high 50s. It is a park made for baseball. Going to be tough. Long throw. Fletcher, what a play. It's still early, but he kept the no-hitter alive. That ball had double written all over it. It's playing off the line. It was a breaking ball that was hanging inside. He says one of the problems he's had, Fletcher, is when he moves from second base to third, the throw is so different that his arm gets a little bit weary and a little bit sore. Used to play across the city in Wrigley Field with the Cubs.
Tony, last Sunday at Detroit, Dotson had a no-hitter going for 4 2/3, and the guy at the plate here, Nelson Simmons, broke it up with a base hit. And later, a 3-run homer by Darrell Evans was the decisive blow in the 6th as the Tigers came back and won the game 4-3. Dotson has a no-hitter through 4 1/3 here as he faces Simmons.
Gonna be tough. Cruz, does he have it? He does. What a great play. Cruz saves it. Outstanding acrobatic diving play by Julio Cruz, which was preceded by one by Dotson. That's as far as you can go right there. And then the pop-up, a la Ozzie Smith, he gets Simmons. Fletcher's play was good. This is great. This is great.
So Cruz's offense may have fallen off considerably in the last year and a half, but his defense is still of the acrobatic and scintillating variety.
Now it's John Grubb. He struck out in the 2nd. 5-0 White Sox. Top of the 5th, 2 down. One ball, 1 strike. The curveball misses. That'll tell you that he's got a sinker going, and they're beating some of his sliders in the ground, too. Change-up could be it. Base hit. Johnny Grubb. So the fans giving a little trail for 4 2/3. Johnny Grubb, the second base runner of this ball game. Whitaker was hit by a pitch leading off. He was picked off at 2nd after he stole. Little sinker. Hit a little too hard for Dotson to get the glove down. Now it's Evans. Tigers, a team who can throw a lot of runs on the board in a hurry. Change up outside. A ball to Dwight Evans. Darrell Evans. He's given one of the big free agent acquisitions by the Tigers. Tom Monahan took over the Pizza King. Wanted to spend some money. They thought his left-handed bat and his on-base percentage would add a lot. He struggled last year trying to adjust to the off-speed pitches thrown by American League pitchers. Some contend more often an adjustment to the strikeouts of American League umpires at times. Scott Dotson in the hole, 2-0. Went change-up.
Tony, it was a bit too early to really take the no-hit bid that seriously, but for those interested in these things, the last no-hitter, of course, pitched in this ballpark, Jack Morris, on the NBC Game of the Week for the Tigers last April against the White Sox. And the last White Sox no-hitter occurred in 1976.
Fastball, count goes 2-2. Of course, that no-hitter by Morris called by Vince Scully and Joe Garagiola last spring.
The one in 76 for the Sox came at Oakland, a combined no-hitter by the former A's pitcher, then wearing a White Sox uniform, John Blue Moon Odom, and the late Francisco Barrios.
You are so subtle, the way you started that off. A little early to take it too seriously. You're starting to very subtly say, you're taking it too seriously. I appreciate it. But I'll tell you, I started taking it seriously when those 2 nice plays were made. Then it was over with. John Grubb single. 5-0 ball game. You got to have a little excitement, don't you? Keep the fans tuned in.
You know, Tony,
Keep tuned in all day because we got a doubleheader to follow.
We're part reporters and part entertainers. Exactly how the percentages break down differ from person to person, but
full count, 2 outs. The run will be going off first. Evans is on. We bring up Lemon. 2 men on with 2 outs. See if the Tigers can duplicate what the White Sox have done so far today. Get those rallies going after 2 outs. All 5 of the Sox runs have been scored after 2. 5-0 White Sox. In the top of the 5th. First base on balls given up by Rich Dotson. A strike. Right on the black on the outside edge. Lemon grounded out in the 3rd. 1-1. Sparky Anderson felt that when they got Lemon that he might have been a little bit too intense to keep into that 3 spot. Plus, when you got guys like Gibson, Parrish, and some of the others, look what it does to your lineup if you can move a guy like Lemon down. Getting in the 8th spot today. We've got some bats from 1 through 9 in this Tiger lineup. 2-1. Dotson drops behind. Dave Duncan keeping a close look at Rich Dotson. Duncan, part of that Oakland A's organization when they had that great pitching staff. Catfish Hunter, Holtzman, Vida Blue, Boo Moon Odom, Knowles, Fingers. 2-2. A team that you never hear talked about, even though they won 5 consecutive Western Divisions and 3 consecutive World Championships. Dick Williams, a great manager, Alvin Dark there, as being one of the great teams of the modern era. They had such outstanding pitching, such balance in their hitting and running attack. 2-2. Popped it up. Wouldn't make keep it in playable. Blowing back. Fair territory. Near collision, but Greg Walker corrals it with a little help from his friend Julio Cruz. Go to the bottom of the 5th. White Sox 5, Detroit Tigers nothing. We'll be back after these messages.
And here we have every baseball purist's dream, a fuzzy creature of some sort cavorting around a major league diamond. Now let's think of the perfect situation. A crazy mascot, indoor dome stadium with artificial surface and a scoreboard that tells the fans when to cheer, and chicken franks instead of real hot dogs, and make sure it's an American League game with the designated hitter.
Who's your dream announcer in this? I've been seeing you're putting this scenario together. Need we go any further?
This is the all-time traditionalist nightmare.
Bottom of the 5th. White Sox 5. The Tigers nothing. Bill Sherrod to Baines, Walker, and Kittle. A ball. Baines. Was the start of a fine-looking afternoon. A double run scored in the 1st, a single, 2 RBIs in the 2nd. Low out of play. 1-1. Let's see, Harold Baines, a little bit like Al Oliver. I don't know if he only does it against left-handed pitchers, but he picks that right leg up and perches on the left leg. You ever saw pictures of Sadaharu Oh? He did that. Every year he's gotten bigger and stronger. There it is. His timing device. Something that Lou Piniella teaches so well. Hitting instructor up with the New York Yankees. Use of that lower body. Weight shift. Cock with that foot. There it is. Whitaker should have it. 4-3. What about Alex Gramis, who was the third base coach? Big Red Machines, asking him to compare Trammell and Whitaker to Concepcion and Morgan, and he very diplomatically said, oh, hard comparison. They said, well, just compare them as individually. So, well, there just is nobody offensively like Joe Morgan. Steal you 50, 60 bases, hit home runs, great on-base percentage. He said, and he wants some gold gloves, too. He said, so offensively, it's got to be Morgan. He said, although Whitaker has a chance, the way he's swinging the bat now, if he doesn't go into any funks, to lead the league in hitting. Trammell, well, Concepcion, just shy of 2,000 base hits. In the corner. It stays fair. It slices foul. So Walker will come back. The count will be 1-1.
You know, Tony, if I had to pick the single most underrated player of the last 15 years or so in baseball, not underrated by baseball people, but not a household name, not recognized by the casual fan as an all-time great when he deserves to be, it would be Joe Morgan. Not only will Morgan be in the Hall of Fame, but he isn't one of these marginal guys, so many of whom have made it into the Hall of Fame in the past several years. We're talking about a first-rank Hall of Famer who truly deserves to be listed among the all-time great second basemen.
Well, you had Bench there. You had Rose there. Foster with a 50-plus home run year. But the player of the 70s, if you look at the numbers, and you are as objective as you can be, was Joe Morgan. You look at the 70s, and he was it. A ball and 2 strikes with 1 out. Walker is single and popped out. Chicago with a 5-0 lead over Detroit. Big curveball misses high. 2-2. Morgan now doing a little broadcasting for Cincinnati. Breaking ball, misses inside. Right now we're going to pause briefly for station identification. This is the NBC Television Network.
This is WOC.
Statistician Steve Horn, Bob Costas, Tony Kubek back in Comiskey Park. There's your score, 5-0. Big breaking ball that he took something off. Walker goes after it. He now has 4 strikeouts, Bill Scherr, since he relieved Juan Berenguer.
Tony, Scherr came over to the Tigers late last season from Cincinnati for cash and the ever-present player to be named later, who turned out to be pitcher Carl Willis, who went from Detroit to the Reds to complete the deal. What about the great line earlier this year by the Giants coach Rocky Bridges? They got the shortstop, Jose Gonzalez, as part of that Dave LaPointe, Jack Clark deal with the Tigers. And Gonzalez decided there were too many Jose Gonzalezes in baseball.
Could be trouble left field. He hit a ball hard. It looked like a knuckleball out to Nelson Simmons. So Kittle's on, and he gets a little hand because he has been struggling.
So Jose Gonzalez said, listen, why don't you call me Uribe Gonzalez? And he said, no, that's not good. Why don't you call me Jose Uribe, which is what he's settled on now. And Rocky Bridges says, well, Jose truly was, literally, the player to be named later.
Nice to see Rocky Bridges back with the Giants. Managed so successfully with Phoenix for so many years. What a great sense of humor. 2 down. Now it's Boston. He struck out twice in this ball game. It's a tough left-hander. He pulls the string on a curveball. Ball players, I don't know who around a batting cage can have a crueler sense of humor than a ball player, one getting on another. Evans playing back of Kittle. 1-1. Bobby Grich had a good line last week. Running down to first base. He said, I've gained a step going to first base on a ground ball. How? He said, I've shortened my stride. 1-1. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 down.
You know Grich's greatest line this year, he said, there's no justice in the world. I spend $35 to have my hair styled, another $20 at a tanning salon, perfect my baseball skills over 2 decades, and then I'm benched on National Secretary's Day.
Darryl Boston goes down for the 3rd time in this ball game. So, Scherr doing a nice job after 5. Sox 5, Tigers nothing.
Tom Brookins leads it off. Here's a little adventure he had earlier in the game.
Well, A for effort right here.
We're in the top of the 6th, and strike 1 from Dotson to Brookins. As always, we'll pick a light beer from Miller Player of the Game at the conclusion of today's telecast. 1-1. It's the first of 2 on NBC. Most of you will see the Royals and the Yankees from Kansas City next with Vin Scully and Joe Garagiola. Some will see the Pirates and the Dodgers in L.A. Phil Stone and Mike Shannon will work that game. Off-speed breaking ball swung on and missed. Is it my imagination, Tony, or is Dotson relying on the slow curveball more than he did in his big 1983 season?
He's always had the great straight change, and it was a little harder breaking ball. He's now learning to change speed. Some people felt at one time that Dotson was trying to do too much at too young of an age. Do too many things with his fastball. Cut it, sink it, run it. Go with a slider and a curveball. They thought one might be affecting the other. Do different things with his changeup. Only 26, and he's still learning.
And threw that one right by Brookins.
You know, he's got, at one time here, he had a lot of different people coaching him. He's, of course, got Duncan. Don Drysdale's helped him a lot, who broadcast for them. They had early win here. Ernie Harwell, the old curmudgeon. What's his book name coming out?
He's got a book coming out in a week or so. Wrote it himself, no ghostwriter, called Tuned to Baseball, about his many years in the baseball broadcasting booth. One of the genuinely sweet men in this game, Ernie Harwell. Whitaker tries to drop a bunt, but it's foul.
Well, Ernie had a great collection of literature and records, and I think a lot of the baseball literature. Didn't he donate it to the Hall of Fame, and they've got a special section with a lot of his material in it, things he had saved. He's talking about that Bobby Thompson home run and all the broadcasters that called it along with him. Russ Hodges, Red Barber was there. We thought Harry Carey was there. About 5 different radio broadcasts of the shot heard around the world.
Of course, Russ Hodges' call, the Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant, is the one everybody remembers. But some other great voices were also on the air that day. 0-2 to Whitaker. You know, later this month on NBC, Len Berman has an interesting show on Sports World called NBC Sports Fantasies. It's an hour-long program wherein people wrote to Len saying what their sports fantasies might be. He held up. One guy, for example, wanted to broadcast half an inning of a game with Harry Carey. There was a fellow who wanted to play golf in the Sinai Peninsula. We couldn't grant that particular fantasy, but one fellow wrote to Len Berman, and he said, listen, I've been a lifelong, the count is full, a lifelong Dodger fan, and I still can't forget 1951. I want to come into the game instead of Ralph Branca and pitch to Bobby Thompson, and I want to strike him out. A walk to Whitaker, who didn't realize that was ball 4, so he's aboard with 1 out. So Len Berman went to Barry Halper, the great sports collector, and Barry came up with an authentic Brooklyn Dodgers uniform. They outfitted this guy. They shot the footage in black and white, and they fitted it to a shot of Bobby Thompson taking a strike, which he did from Ralph Branca just before he hit the home run, and they pretended that was the 3rd strike and the 3rd out, although actually there was only 1 out when Branca served up the home run ball to Thompson, and Willie Mays was waiting on deck, but what the heck, it's a fantasy. Strike 1 to Trammell. Russ Hodges passed away a few years ago, so they couldn't have Hodges do the broadcast. They had Ernie Harwell come on and intone, the Giants lose the pennant. The Giants lose the pennant. Ripped by Trammell down the line and left, and Law gets there. Back to first goes Whitaker.
Much better suited is Rudy Law in left field and center, where he played a couple of years here. His throwing arm is not a center fielder's arm, and he makes a nice play. That ball was hooking away from him and really sinking. Tell you put those 3 guys in the outfield, they can go get the ball, can't they? You look at the outfield with Dwayne Murphy in Oakland and Mike Davis in right, who's just having a super start. Collins in left, they can go get the ball. Toronto outfield of Barfield, Bell, Mosby, and that outfield up in Boston.
You mentioned Dwayne Murphy. I heard he might be on the trading block and that possibly the White Sox would be interested in him.
Well, why do they want more? They're looking for right-handed hitters. I know he's a good, outstanding player, Murphy. Won a bunch of Gold Gloves, had over 30 home runs last year. They appear to want right-handed hitting, but so does Toronto Blue Jays want some right-handed power.
That's a fair ball. Whitaker is around second as Baines chases this into the corner. Grammas is waving him home. Baines didn't get after this ball very quickly. Whitaker scores, and Gibson has a triple. Harold Baines is an all-out player. I don't mean to give you the wrong idea, but watch the way he goes after this ball. He's
one of these gliders anyway. He knew it's a sure double. I think he just didn't want to get too close to that wall and have the ball rattle around and bounce around by him. Now it's Juan Augusto, who is just going to start throwing for Tony La Russa as Dave Duncan comes out. There's a little talk with Rich Dotson. Dotson, right about now, he's just about 80 pitches. Last outing, he threw a little over 100. Remember, he is not really in spring training, but close to it. He had that elbow problem, and I don't believe he pitched an inning in spring training. If he did, it wasn't very much. He didn't pick up many baseballs down there.
So a walk to Whitaker and a triple by Gibson. Only the Tigers' second hit produces Detroit's first run.
The White Sox are going to win the West this year. They're going to have very dominant pitching most of this season.
Line drive, but it's right at Julio Cruz. A run for the Tigers in the 6th, and after 5.5, Chicago leads it 5-1. The 4-run White Sox second chased Juan Berenguer, and now it's Bill Scherer. And this might be a key outing for the left-hander. He had not done that well previously, but he's been impressive today out of the bullpen.
Well, the ERA is extremely inflated. One of the reasons he had really a bad outing against the Brewers. Ted Simmons beat him with a grand slam home run. So a lot of those runs, that's like what happens with relievers. You know, you have a couple bad outings, you don't have a big inning build up, and the ERA can go up to 10.
Mark Hill has hit the ball well both times to the plate and has nothing to show for it. Gibson caught his liner in the second, and Lemon went almost to the track in right center to haul down his drive in the third. Bottom of the sixth. Just floats one in there, strike one. In the air to right field, Gibson flips the shades down and in front of the track puts it away. One out, and let's go to Bill McAtee in New York.
All right, Bob, the Mets have increased their lead over the Phillies with pitcher Sid Fernandez on first. Keith Hernandez strokes the ball to right. Glenn Wilson gives it a shot but can't make the catch. Fernandez chugs home. He is throwing a shutout. That was it for Shane Raleigh, and the Mets lead it now 4-0, bottom of 5. Bob?
All right, Bill, talk about key pitchers. Sid Fernandez went down to Tidewater, was 4-1 for the Mets AAA club, including a 17 strikeout performance. If this is fair, it'll be tough for Gibson. He just outruns the baseball.
Sparky Anderson wasn't too far wrong, and he said he put a curse on Gibson, but when he did say you rarely find that combination of great speed, sprinter speed, world-class sprinter speed, and power that Gibson has. But Mickey Mantle, now, but he can run, and he can hit it a long way.
So 2 out, and the batter is Guillen. Started to say, if Sid Fernandez, who is now back up with the Mets, can come through and pitch as he did at AAA, and you're talking about two different worlds, obviously, and if Ed Lynch is as good as his last 2 outings indicate, you combine them with Gooden and Darling, that Met concern about the depth of their pitching staff and their ability to stay with the Cubs through a long, hot summer.
And also get Doug Ziss back, who's been sent down to the minor leagues, but get his arm in the bean to give Orozco some help and relief.
Guillen reached for a ball, and Evans now gets him. Evans juggled it and was able to recover in time to throw to Sheriff for the out. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station.
Ozzie Guillen had a mild discussion with the first base umpire. Rick Reed thought that Cher missed the bag, but Rick Reed says, nope, he got a little part of it. The ball was bobbled by Evans.
Something Guillen will learn as he gets a bit more experience at the big league level is that a hitter such as he, who doesn't have tremendous power, can't try and pull outside pitches as he did on that one. Just going to have those weak tappers to second base and first base. Dotson threw 90 pitches while he was in there. And now Juan Augusto comes on, trying to protect the 5-1 lead as we go to the 7th. That turns switch hitter Nelson Simmons around to the right side. Ball 1.
It's the part of the pitching staff that Tony La Russa is going to have to do a lot of finagling with. That bullpen. They got Bob James from Montreal, who has a chance to be an outstanding stopper with that 95-mile-an-hour heater, and if he gets the curveball over. 83 when they won it. La Russa, I thought he did a masterful job. He got 45, right around 45 saves out of the bullpen. The top guy was Dennis Lamp 15. And he didn't show any team too much of one reliever. We have to do the same thing this year.
Augusto misses with 4 in a row, and Simmons trots down to first.
Sparky may be calling Grubb back. That's what's happening. Grubb stepping in the batter's box. I don't think he expected it anyway, because Sparky has a string of right-handed hitters. He's got Marty Castillo, Herndon, Kuntz, Garbe, the switch hitter Patero, and Alex Sanchez. Sanchez, a guy, one of 3 players who were MVPs last year, all out of the Phillies organization. Hernandez, or they played with the Phillies at one time. Sanchez, an MVP out in the Pacific Coast League. Ryan Sandberg, Phillies property, National League MVP. Hernandez right here in this league.
As you said, Tony, Sanchez was most recently San Francisco property, and he started the year in the minor leagues. The Tigers called him up when Dave Bergman went on the disabled list with a sore elbow. Sanchez had 2 home runs in a game Wednesday against Cleveland in the designated hitter's role. Second half of the doubleheader. Yankees and Royals with Vin and Joe. Pirates and Dodgers. In some parts of the country, Phil Stone and Mike Shannon will call it. Sanchez takes a strike.
Scheduled pitchers that Yankee-Kansas City game, the left-hander Bud Black and Rasmussen. Black very quietly won about 17 ball games last year.
Talk about your young pitching staffs. Boy, does Dick Hauser have one in Kansas City.
Kubaza, Saber-Hagging, Black, Danny Jackson, another left-hander.
Lee Brandt.
Lee Brandt's the old-timer.
I guess, mid-20s.
Since he's come up with that screwball, he's been pitching very well.
Augusto just threw Sanchez a wicked slider that darted down and in. 0-2. Simmons wasn't going anywhere at first base. The Tigers trailing 5-1. Detroit's 5-game winning streak in jeopardy. That's 5 officially. They also won a couple of exhibition games this week, home and home with the Cincinnati Reds. Games played for charity. Deep to left, but foul.
I didn't realize Sanchez was this big. Saw him from a distance in spring training. He's a muscular guy, just like Simmons is. Simmons has that outstanding power of the opposite field, the switch hitter.
Way outside, 2-2. Simmons is at first with nobody out, top of the 7th.
Now Jim Campbell, Bill LaJoy, 2 executives, Sparky Anderson realizing they couldn't stand still in what is the toughest division in the history of divisional play, the Eastern Division American League, so they added about 3 or 4 new players.
A drive to right. Baines goes back, and on the track, he's got it.
There are times when that wind was blowing out of the northwest, spring or fall, where that would have been pushed in the seats. Not today. Getting into a little crosswind. That's what made, I thought, Gibson's home run that much more hard to believe. It was a hard crosswind that was trying to kill that ball as it was trying to bite through it, and it still cleared the fence. Now La Russa is going to come in. They've announced Garbey. La Russa checked with Greg Kosk. Was Garbey officially put in the ball game by Sparky Anderson? As soon as he said yes, he's probably going to go to Gene Nelson, the right-hander.
So Nelson will come in as Garbey prepares to bat for Darrell Evans.
Only one left-handed hitter, aside from the switch hitter Patero, but Jim Weaver, kid they drafted, they've got to keep sitting on Sparky Anderson's bench.
Augusto faced 2 batters. Brief day's work for him. We'll be right back. So it's Sports World tomorrow, 4 Eastern Time. Delayed broadcast at 3 o'clock in Los Angeles on NBC.
Gene Nelson on now to face Garbey. Kid the Yankees brought up, 20 years old. Always had the outstanding chain. I think he's become more of a sinker ball pitcher now. The White Sox have a young, hard-throwing right-hander, Al Jones, Alfonso Jones, who's disabled, who was going to be a big part of this bullpen.
Nelson's first one to Garbey, a fastball for a strike. Nelson is only 24, but he spent part of 5 seasons in the major leagues. First with the Yankees, then with Seattle. Now the White Sox. Curveball is popped foul. Fletcher over for a look, but he runs out of room.
Seeing with La Russa running a couple of pitchers in this inning that, unlike the National League, they don't have to worry about double switching and batting orders. You just keep 9 guys going around in a circle. Who says the strategy is the same in both leagues. Nelson thought he had the pitch. Walks down off the mound on Greg Koss, which umpires don't like. And now Hill turns on Koss to try and take the pressure off Nelson. Garbe, a good off-speed hitter. Hits the ball to right center field very well. Also likes the ball, appears to me, up and out over the plate. He won't let too many high pitches go by. One out, playing behind the runner. Walker down at first base.
Garbe, as many of you know, is at the plate right now. Came to the United States from Cuba on the Freedom Flotilla a few years back. Went after a bad ball, and Nelson fans him.
Looked like a hard slider. See, Garbe also got in hot water for he was fixing ball games. I don't know if that's a slider or some kind of freak pitch.
That was in Cuba where that occurred, and he was suspended for a while. Here's Lemon, who's 0 for 2. Checks his swing, and it's a ball. They check down at first base with Rick Reed. Simmons walked, but pinch hitters Sanchez and Garbe have been retired. So Simmons is still at first with 2 down. Oh, make it 1-1 to Lemon.
What is that silly thing? I don't think it's a curve or a slider. Something that's just tumbling down, going off the table. He may be another one of those pitchers who's come up with a split-fingered fastball. Give himself that 3rd or 4th pitch. Now he goes with the seams.
Lemon ran up as if to bunt and took ball 2. I wonder how often in his career Chet Lemon has hit in the 8th slot. Not too frequently, I'd guess. It's where he is today. 3-1.
Both bullpens start up again. La Russa with that 4-run lead. He is not going to go too far. Doug Baer throwing for the Tigers.
And a walk to Lemon.
Started out with the base on balls to Simmons. Jim Weaver's going to come up. Is that Bob Fallon? Yep. For the left-hander. Also, Tim Lawler is available in the bullpen. He was taken out of the starting rotation. With the schedule of what it is, La Russa will go with 4 starters for a while. Lawler, left-hander, can't finish. Bob James pitched yesterday. I don't know if La Russa will use him again. Might just to close out a few hitters or 1 inning.
So the rookie Jim Weaver hits for Brookins. Becomes the 3rd pinch hitter in the inning. The first 2 didn't come through. Strike 1.
Sparky talks about Weaver, that he's improving in every area, taking a lot of fly balls, a lot of extra hitting practice. One of those players they've got to keep on the roster unless they can make, if they try and send him back, he gets reclaimed.
He hit .230 at Toledo last year in the Minnesota organization with 15 home runs. Weak swing, and he fouled it off. He's been to the plate only 3 times this year with 1 hit. It was a double.
You can bet that Mark Hill, sometimes scouting reports are a little vague on young players, although they do scout the minor leagues, but he's not going to let him hit a fastball unless he has to. They know in the minor leagues you can usually hit those. Fastball out of the strike zone.
Still 1-2.
You taking odds of to come back with that pitch that he throws down in the dirt, whoever he's gotten other hitters with? If Hill is following a pattern, fastball up, try to get it to pop up or swing through it, or he may go right downstairs.
Big breaking ball outside. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs and 2 on. Top of the 7th, and the White Sox lead the Tigers 5-1.
Tigers a team that can grind you down. Not just their lineup that they start, but bringing bats off the bench. And there's still more there.
Called strike 3.
What a good fastball, a comebacker.
It's 5-1 White Sox after 6.5, and here's another edition of Baseball Remembers.
Old Spice presents Baseball Remembers. Brought to you by unmistakably masculine Old Spice aftershave and cologne. Splash on the feeling. Splash on Old Spice. Henry Aaron talks about being remembered as more than a home run hitter.
When I talk about my baseball career, I hardly ever bring up home runs. I'm proud of the fact that after 23 years, I ended up with a batting average of over 300. With all of the things that I tried to do, and that was to do certain things for my team, like hit home runs, like steal bases, like play as many games as I possibly could play. And ended up with a 300 batting average after 23 years was quite an achievement for me. And so I was able to put the home runs and the average together.
Tony, you know what happened as we look at the new players. Chris Patero at third base and Barbaro Garbe now at first base, with Brookins and Evans each having been pinch hit for in the top half of the 7th. The Cubs and the White Sox played an exhibition game here a couple of weeks ago, and in the top of the 7th, Harry Carey went for the microphone to serenade the fans, as he had when he was the voice of the White Sox and does now with the Cubs. Law taps back to Scherer, who throws him out. And mysteriously, the microphone was silent. It was dead. No take me out to the ball game heard from Harry at Comiskey Park. But in the bottom half of the 7th, when the White Sox singer loosened his cords up, worked perfectly, heard throughout Comiskey Park.
That was Roger Scanlon, and for 81 games in Wrigley Field across town in the Windy City, Harry Carey's a great inspiration to all the non-singers in the world.
Fletcher fouls one off.
Scherer has done a nice job, hasn't he? Outstanding, keeping it close.
Taking a line from Jack Buck, who had that comment the other night on the radio before a Cardinal-Dodger game. I won't embarrass the fellow by mentioning his name, but the most woeful rendition of the national anthem ever heard in the history of baseball had to have been delivered before the Dodger-Cardinal game. Here's a bouncer to short, and Trammell on a nice big hop throws Fletcher out. And when the gentleman had finished, I think the organist was playing in a different key than the singer was singing in. But in any case, Jack Buck gave his name and then said, and he is an inspiration to all of the non-singers of the world, which in fact he was.
Just wouldn't let me take credit for that, would you? A man who's gone unnoticed, except by his peers in the major leagues, Harold Baines.
That's with the bases empty and 2 out, and takes a strike.
Bob Bowinski noticed him. Saw him play Little League Baseball in Maryland. Told Bill Veeck. Bill Veeck went to see him play. Veeck listened to the fans. Veeck, he signed Britt Burns, Bob Cromie, a writer going through Alabama, saw some headlines, told Veeck. Veeck remembered it. Had him signed. Mets 4, Philadelphia nothing. 6th inning.
Bill Veeck had a line one time that some owners and fans in baseball would be wise to heed. He said, this game was meant to be savored, not gulped. 1-2 it remains.
Say the present owners here, Jerry Reinsdorf, Eddie Einhorn, have really put a lot into this community. They've redone this ballpark, resodded, put a lot of dough in, gave him a division champ. Is he a hitter? Low and away breaking ball, he just pops it in center field. 1 ball, 3 of his base hits. One has come with 0-2, 2 RBIs, 1 ball, 2 strikes, and now 1-2 again. He's learned to hit within himself. Up till 2 strikes, he might try and pull the ball and go downtown. You get 2 strikes against a tough pitch. And he just says, I'm going to just put it in play.
So Baines began the day at .317 and has gone 3 for 4. Ball 1 to Walker. There are some who say there should be a baseball stat called the hold for a pitcher not eligible for a win or save, but one who comes in and minimizes the damage and gives his team a chance to catch up. If there were such a stat, Scherer would certainly qualify today.
A performance like this goes unnoticed.
With his 3 for 4, Baines has jumped to .333 on the year. Out of the chase a bad ball for strike 2.
See, he came in to pitch to Walker in the 2nd inning. Aurelio Lopez, Senor Smoke. Got Walker out, retired the side in the 3rd. Got a base runner in the 4th, 1 in the 5th, 3 up, 3 down in the 6th, and now 1 in the 7th. Scherer's been brilliant.
That one finds the hole. Baines rounds 2nd. And there will be runners at the corners with 2 down.
I don't know what it is, but they've done it most of this young season, the White Sox, with 2 outs. But they've got what they call a routine put in by the late Charlie Lau. In fact, he's the first one to have a field down in Florida. Other teams are doing it now, and he's written a book about situational hitting. They go through their routine every day where they bunt a couple, one they sacrifice, then batting practice, a squeeze bunt, then they hit and run to right field, then they try to advance the runner to right field, then they go for a sacrifice fly, and Mike Lum, the hitting instructor and advocate of Lau's theories, watches them do it. They do it every day.
Ball 1. Kittle is 1 for 3 on the afternoon. Baines at 3rd and Walker at 1st.
Here comes Billy Muffet. He may think Scherer's had enough. Kittle up. He's fallen behind. He's going to have a little talk. As Sparky usually comes out to remove the pitcher, this may be a little bit of a trip to just get Lopez and buy him a little more time out of the bullpen. What a tandem that was, huh? Aurelio Lopez and Willie Hernandez. Hernandez, who now, he's 39 out of possible 40 save situations. It's just...
That screwball of Willie Hernandez has been devastating.
Brought to him by Mike Cuellar, who's now a pitching instructor in the minor leagues for the Brewers. Hernandez learned that cut fastball from the former Chicago Cub great Ferguson Jenkins.
To Kittle, who is well beneath the dreaded Mendoza line, so named for the notoriously weak-hitting infielder Mario Mendoza.
Except Kittle produces runs. That's a big difference.
Strike one.
That's where batting averages can be so deceiving, and he is in a horrendous slump. I mean, he knows it. He's taking extra batting practice every day. When you produce runs, the low batting average is not that important.
Patero, it ate him up. Let's see if he has time. Safe, and a run is home.
That was close because Kittle has had recurring problems the last 2 years with severe cases of shin splints. He popped a little old stirrup. But Kittle, in fact, for the last 2 years had so much trouble, he finally went to an acupuncturist. And he said he's finally gotten relief. Those big, strong hitters, they hit balls with that overspin. Patero, who's going to be the second baseman, if he has a problem at third, he does not have a third baseman's throwing arm. And you just saw it right there. That's why Sparky wanted to make the play. make the change in the spring. Put Whitaker at third because of his throwing arm. Thought he'd lengthen Whitaker's throw, take some of the pressure off him with guys sliding in hard. But then the move was vetoed by Whitaker and Whitaker's wife. Said, no, I want to play second base. Sparky said, hey, look, you're an all-star there. You're going to stay there if you want.
And Whitaker's wife?
Yep.
Member of the front office, is she?
Comes one of the all-time pinch hitters for this ball club, Jerry Hairston.
That play, by the way, is ruled a base hit for Kittle. His second of the day and an RBI, 6-1 White Sox. The Mendoza line, by the way, the official cutoff is 200. You get to 199 and the players will say you have dipped beneath the Mendoza line.
Jerry Hairston, who, as Bob told you earlier, when the ball drifted to left field a couple of weeks ago with that wind blowing out, damaged his knee a little bit. He bruised it. Been wearing a brace. He still has some difficulty swinging. From the right side, Hairston batting .429. From the left side, 182. So when he is announced, let's see if Sparky Anderson doesn't turn around to the other side with Lopez.
As was the case with the White Sox run in the first and all 4 of their runs in the second, they have scored here starting with 2 outs and nobody on base. 3 straight 2-out singles. Baines, Walker, and then Kittle. Hairston for Boston takes a ball. Into right field, Gibson coming on, and Kirk gets there and drops it. If they charge him with an error, it will be his second today and his third in the last 2 games. He dropped the fly ball last night.
No question that it's an error, and probably what happened, the wind drifted it toward him a little bit, but that's not what happened. So many times when you run as hard as he does, that ball starts bouncing on you. His heel and toers, guys whose heel hit the ground first. Mantle was that way. The ball starts jumping around on you, and it popped off the heel of his glove. Now Sparky Anderson's going to come out and make his move. Pinch runner sent down to first base. For Hairston, because of the knee problem, Luis Salazar has gone down to first. Sparky wants the ball. He said, when I cross the line, I want one thing. Don't say anything, just hand me the ball. Here comes Lopez.
Another run home, 7-1, first and third. So on May 20th, we'll learn the truth about Carl Williams as he takes on Larry Holmes, Dick Enberg, Marv Albert, and Ferdy Pacheco comprise the broadcast crew.
The truth. How did he get that nickname?
How do any fighters get their nicknames? My favorite, we had a guy on NBC.
I can tell you don't know the answer. That's why you said that.
Just trying to move on to something else. Lopez faces Hill and starts him with a ball. We had a guy on NBC about 3 or 4 years ago from Detroit, Leslie Sweet Lemonade Gardner. A little bloop, and it could be trouble. Whitaker going back, and Lou puts it away. So Lopez throws 2 pitches and gets them out of the inning, but the White Sox score twice more and leads 7-1 after 7.
2 outs again.
The former Padre, Luis Salazar, who can play third base or the outfield, is in center field after Hairston batted for Boston. And Whitaker leads off here in the 8th, taking ball 1. The Tigers trail 7-1. A ball and a strike. At this point, Dotson stands to be the winner. Berenguer would be the loser. Hit hard, but right at Guillen. 1 out. As Whitaker and Trammell lead off this inning, it's interesting to note how remarkably similar their career offensive stats are. Could it be any closer? They came up through the Tiger organization together, and they have virtually duplicated one another's performance.
You don't think there's a guy on the other side of the field in the White Sox dugouts proud of those two? Eddie Brinkman, one of the White Sox coaches, had them in the minor leagues. He was their manager. And he said, I really didn't do a whole lot. Talked about playing situations, hitters, pitchers, didn't mess with their hitting. He saw the ability. Another man sitting down in Florida, Ralph Houck, when the team was on a downtrend, the Tigers, he said, I'm bringing him up. And just threw Trammell and Whitaker in a ball game like it was in September. So they've got to learn to play someday, and he started them off.
Curveball low, 2-1. Last year, Whitaker hit .289. Trammell hit .314 and was the MVP in the World Series.
Look at the close stance. Remember when he first came up? Have a straightaway stance off the plate. He had an injury a few years back, and when he was trying to rehabilitate himself, was under the stands. Went to a fatter handle bat. That's what you're going to see next. Vin and Joe, Yankees and the Royals from Kansas City. Closed his stance, experimented, and the first time he tried it, in an actual game, got 4 base hits. He's stuck with it ever since. Gates Brown helped him an awful lot. There are a few hitters left who got that barrel bat that Nellie Fox used to use, without a knob.
It hasn't been the best possible game for Gibson. His triple last time up, and the RBI that went with it might console him a little bit, but he's made 2 errors in right field. Walker is playing behind Trammell at first base.
And breathing a sigh of relief. The guy like Gibson, up as hard as he hits the ball, you want to play as deeply as you can. Yogi was that way. Cal, he would pull outside pitches, and guys would hold runners on, and they just hated it, more so than when Mickey was up, because Mickey didn't pull the ball that sharply on the ground with that uppercut. Yogi would just ricochet balls off first baseman's shins.
Big cut at the fastball, a ball and a strike.
Gibson trying to get some consistency. He's got just, what, 23 base hits, 24 with a triple a day. He's had a 4-hit game, like 2 4-hit games and 1 3-hit game. So you can see how inconsistent and how he has struggled all year.
Started the day hitting .240. Change for a strike.
He's so strong. I think, he's always come on late. Even the strike year, the second half of the season, he just was a terror. There's your line score. All 7 runs scored after 2 outs by the White Sox. But I think a guy that swings this hard, is that strong, when the pitchers wear down and he gets more on the off-speed pitch.
Something off speed there, and Gibson goes down swinging and hears about it from the White Sox fans. It's Parrish with 2 out, and Trammell still at first. That was the second time Gibson had struck out today. Dotson went 6. Augusto faced just 2 men in the 7th. Nelson came in to finish that inning, and now works here in the 8th.
Once again, the White Sox bullpen going. A while ago, they had the left-hander Tim Lawler up, and just taken out of the starting rotation. Now there's a right-hander thrown up there. And Russo's trying to salvage this ball game.
He committed himself for strike 2.
Whatever that thing is, it sure breaks late, doesn't it? The hitters start after like the fastball. He has such good motion. It's very quick breaking at the end. Times it looks like a hard slider, sometimes like a split-fingered fastball when it tumbles off. Might even be a pound ball or a slip pitch, although at times it looks too hard to be that.
Broken bat and a foul ball. The Tigers started the day a half game back of Baltimore in the American League East. Baltimore is at home today against Minnesota. Good pitching matchup. Frank Viola, who's 5-2 for the Twins. Mike Boddicker, who's 4-1, goes for Baltimore.
There's the East. Tell you, Flanagan ahead of schedule coming off the torn Achilles tendon. First they said it may be the entire season he's gone. Now they're talking July. Lacey, he's been disabled for so long. Lynn there. I'll tell you, with those franchise players, Ripken and Murray.
Meanwhile, they found this young pitcher, Ken Dixon, who's what, 3-0, 4-0?
He's an unlikely-looking pitcher. Stockily built. Doesn't have a pitcher's build. You look at those long and lean guys. Here's what's happening in the West, California, with 4 rookie pitchers on that staff. Gene Mock's back. The Sensei, Carew, Gritch, and Reggie can stay healthy, and Boone especially behind the plate. Going to cause problems moving the kids in now.
White Sox, as you saw, started the day 3.5 back of the Angels. We'll see California next week. We'll be in Anaheim, Tony and I. Yankees coming to town to play the Angels.
The West is not going to be as weak as it was last year. Last year, the philosophy was whichever the Eastern Division teams beats up hardest on the Western opponents, they'd win it. And they got beaten up pretty bad last year. But going into last weekend, the West was playing the East about 500 baseball. Changed over the past weekend, of course. But they're a little bit stronger this year.
And Parrish continues to foul them off, 1-2.
Here's a guy who didn't have really that good a year last year, although he hit the home runs, but his batting average in the low 200s. He's got a chance to hit 40 home runs. Not this year, one other year. He's so strong.
It's the curveball into the hole, but Guillen gets over there and fires to Cruz for the force on Trammell. No runs, no hits, so walk and a man is left. 1 turn remaining for the Tigers. They trail by 6.
Hi, Vin Scully, along with Joe Garagiola. And a reminder, stay tuned for the Kansas City Royals New York Yankees ball game. That will be coming up immediately following the ball game you're watching right now. Ain't that right, Joe?
Right.
You bet.
Bob Costas and Tony Kubek back at Comiskey Park. Julio Cruz, Ozzie Guillen, and then back up to the top for Rudy Law in the White Sox 8th.
All Aurelio Lopez did last year while Hernandez was getting all the publicity, and he deserved it, was go 10-1 and save 14 ball games. Good fastball. He's got the screwball, little slider.
Lopez is 36 years old. He was around in the minors and in the Mexican League for a long time before coming to the majors with the Cardinals and then on to the Tigers. He can be a free agent at the end of this season, represents himself, and as of yet hasn't worked out a new deal with the Tigers.
Played with the Mexico City Reds for about 9 years, didn't he?
1-2 the count as we pause briefly for station identification on the NBC television network.
This is
Julio Cruz goes down looking to start the Chicago 8. You just heard from Vin and Joe in Kansas City. Some of you will see the Pirates and the Dodgers. That's next.
Rick Rhoden saw where he pinch hit again the other day. Started for Pittsburgh, and Jerry Royce at 1-3 starting for the Dodgers. See, they have Walt Terrell of the Tigers take batting practice at home with the extra men in case Sparky Anderson ever needs him to pinch hit. Remember the 2-home run ball game he had in Wrigley Field that we did last year?
Pitched a shutout, too, didn't he? Drove in all the runs with homers himself. 0-1 pitch.
Lopez messed around with that split-fingered fastball. He already had the screwball, as does Hernandez. And by spreading those 2 fingers apart, he started getting a little problem. I don't know if it was tendonitis between the fingers and the joints. He had to give it up.
Fouls that one off. A ball and 2 strikes to him. We've checked the standings in the American League. Over in the National, the Mets started the day at 17-8, a half game better than the Cubs, who are 17-9, and Montreal was 1 back. In the Western Division, it's San Diego by half a game over the Dodgers, by 1 over Cincinnati and 2 over Houston. Trammell comes in and retires Guillen.
Alan Trammell just showed on that how fundamentally sound he is. He doesn't come in with one hand. He can show you that it's just as quick if you do it with two hands and shift your feet around as it is with one hand. Run on the run, put it in the bare hand. That's why he makes all the routine plays, and that's 95% of plays a shortstop gets. And he makes some hard plays look easy, too, because he is a two-handed shortstop.
Law also has a walk thrown in with that 2 for 3. In 1983, when Rudy Law stole a White Sox record 77 bases, he was caught only 12 times. Last year, his total fell to 29, and he was caught 17 times, a very poor percentage.
Well, the only part of the White Sox game that didn't fall apart last year was their defense. Their run production went down by about or more than 100 runs per game. Pitching staff took a tumble, aside from Seaver, who won 15 ball games.
To Rudy Law. 3 balls and a strike.
While we have a chance, we want to send our best wishes along to PR Director of the Tigers, Dan Ewald. I hope you get back in a hurry, Dan. We're all thinking of you. Hope you're listening in. You can bet he's listening in. He's probably got our sound off, listening to Ernie Harwell, the Tigers' great broadcaster. Montreal 3, Atlanta nothing. The Hawk, Andre Dawson. He appears to be back. He probably will never be the same great player, but a shade of Andre Dawson with those bad knees is better than most.
Second straight shutout by the Expos over the Braves. Bryn Smith beat Rick Mailer last night. It looks like Bill Gullickson was the shutout winner today.
Buck Rogers, the new manager up there. Mets 4-0. Philadelphia. Talking about moving Mike Schmidt to first base now.
And the Mets are looking to put back-to-back zeros on the Phillies. Gooden shut them out last night, and Fernandez got them blanked in the 8th today. Seattle and Toronto tied at 2. Did Fletcher check his swing? Yes, he did. 2-1.
Oakland 9, Boston 1. Oakland's going to struggle with that starting pitching staff. Jay Howell out of the pen is going to shut some people down. But boy, Oakland can score runs.
There goes the bat as he swings and misses. These folks want a souvenir, but they won't let you keep the bat, folks. The bat boy pleading for it, and reason prevails, and it's returned.
Way back to that second inning when Scott Fletcher got a big base hit to right field with the bases loaded and 2 are down. Driving home 2, that kind of set the tenor of this game. Richie Bree's got to be happy. Is Fletcher a client of his?
One of the many big league ball players Richie Bree represents. Curve is high.
Those are the guys, and we hear about the drug agreement, Commissioner Ubroth, the agents, the Tom Riches, the Ron Shapiros, and others who've really done a job trying to clean up the mess in baseball. Not sure at this point that Commissioner Ubroth did the right thing. Not sure. Trying to diffuse that situation. But boy,
a little check swing. And over there in left center field is Nelson Simmons to make the catch. Simmons will be the leadoff man in the top half of the ninth. He'll be followed by Sanchez and Garbe. Dan Spillner, who started his career with San Diego, was with Cleveland for a long time, including a 16-victory season in 1980, then came over to the White Sox late last season. Will be the 4th Chicago pitcher today.
1982, he had 21 saves for the Indians. So La Russa trying not to show any one reliever more than a time or so through the Tigers lineup.
Simmons from the left side takes a ball. He bears a certain facial resemblance to Tito Landrum. Now with the Cardinals, Tito might be watching the game. Cards are on the West Coast playing tonight. Tito remembers this ballpark, I guarantee you that. Dramatic home run off Britt Burns to win the 1983 pennant for the Orioles. Game 4 here.
Saw Simmons hit 2 home runs as we look at Tony La Russa. Keeps running relievers in and out. Dotson started, did a good job. Anderson has seen La Russa's White Sox come up with all their runs after 2 are out. I saw this guy hit some tremendous home runs in spring training, 2 of them to the opposite field.
Salazar makes the catch in deep center. The Major League Baseball Game of the Week has been brought to you by Miller Beer. Miller made the American way since 1855. By Ford, who invites you to drive the new Ford Escort. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Gatorade Thirst Quencher. Gatorade is thirst aid for that deep down body thirst. And by Honda Power Equipment. Lawnmowers, lawn tractors, and portable generators made easy and made to last.
Started to say at the end of the last inning about Commissioner Uberoth and his proposal to have mandatory testing of everybody outside of the players, I guess, on the field. And there is a joint agreement that basically the players, I think, feel is starting to work. Not perfect. It was worked on for about 6 months between the Players Association and Lee McPhail and some ownership people. And I don't know when you're dealing with
a base hit for Sanchez, and it might get in a gap. Law picks it up before it gets to the track, but Sanchez has a double anyway.
Don't know if some people construe it as a form of intimidation, mandatory testing, if that works with people who are diseased. And I think we've got to consider that addiction disease as you do with alcoholism. It's a touchy subject, but there's this grand jury investigation in Pittsburgh, Bob. It's whatever they're finding out and granting immunity. I think if you go in there and you go in with your program that you've got, the joint agreement, you say, look, it is starting to work. Give us a chance. And trying to diffuse that situation that way rather than say, hey, let's have mandatory testing. And I'm not questioning the sincerity of the Commissioner Uberoth. I'm sure his intentions are in a marvelous direction.
Strike 1 to Garbe. It's obviously too complex an issue to do complete justice to in this forum. Curveball high. But just to take the opposite point of view, there are those who might say that while certainly many of those involved with drugs, as is the case with alcohol, do have a disease. But it would be naive to say that every player who has ever been involved with drugs has something which can hard-headedly be referred to as a disease.
Do we kick the players out who are trying to rehabilitate themselves and are coming forward willingly and throw them on somebody else's doorstep? That's what I'm worried about. You say, he'll never play for me again. Well, if they did that to everybody who had alcoholism or this illness as the American Medical Association defines it now, what happens to the rest of our society? You try and help people, and you have a little compassion. You know, it's the old saying, there but for the go I, okay? We didn't solve the problem, I know, but I have concerns.
Garbe singles to center.
He can throw.
Sanchez is waved home. The throw is cut off. And there's the second Tiger run. They trail 7-2.
They don't let you up, do they? Throw a scare into you even going into tomorrow. And it forces La Russa's bullpen to get up and going again.
Dave Duncan records that base hit off a high curveball from Spillner by Garbe in his little book.
So now the left-hander, Lawler was up a while ago. Now for the White Sox, Bob Fallon up again. He was up earlier in the ball game. Recently recalled.
It's Lemon now.
We're going to have co-MVPs again today?
You know, we are a most indecisive duo. When was the last time we were simply able to name one MVP? Now, today, you could give it to Dotson, curve for a strike. He'll be the winning pitcher. He pitched 6 good innings.
Only because you're always so contrary. You never agree with me. You say, well, I don't think so, so then we have to share it with the Dotson, and if the score holds up the way it is, with the guy out in right field. Harold Baines, huh?
Well, Fletcher can't handle it. Bijan can, and they get the foot. No, he pulled him off the base. He pulled him off the bag. Otherwise, that one would have made this week in baseball, and it still might.
It had double play written all over it. It was hit very, very hard. Lemons off the glove of Fletcher, and you cannot teach this, folks. You cannot teach to keep going after every ball until it's to the outfield, and Guillen just did it. He never gave up on the ball and almost turned an outstanding force out. Not for Garbe hustling all the way off first base. There may have been a force out, but he just forced a little bit of a wild throw from Guillen.
And an error is charged to... See who picked it up. I started to say Fletcher, but it might be Guillen, which would be one of the all-time ironies.
Yeah. No way.
It is Fletcher. Error on Fletcher.
Randy Minkoff of UPI, the official scorer here today. It was a tough call for him.
1-1 to Patero, his first at-bat.
He's got a little pop. Minor leagues, you say, well, that little second baseman can't hit home runs. He was in the 20s in the minor leagues.
1-2. So without closing the book on the Tigers, but closing things out here as quickly as possible, because we're going to have to run to the second game as soon as this one is concluded. 2-2. We'll say that the co-MVPs are winning pitcher Richard Dotson and Harold Baines of the White Sox, who went 3 for 4 today. And Light Beer from Miller is happy to present a check for $1,000 in the names of Dotson and Baines to help fight multiple sclerosis.
I said Patero was in the 20s. I meant to say double figures, and it came out wrong. Had 11 home runs at Birmingham last year. Could take a base on balls. He also had 71 walks last year.
Three-two pitch. Walker. He'll get one. The runners move up, and the White Sox are an out away. The executive producer of NBC Sports is Michael Weissman. The coordinating producer for NBC's baseball is Harry Coyle. The telecast of today's Game of the Week at Comiskey Park has been produced by Kenneth Edmondson. Directed by the Dean, Harry Coyle. Pregame show produced by Les Dennis. Pregame directed by Joe Michaels. Technical directors Bruce Berquist and Sal Nagita. Steve Horn was our stat man, and we thank him for his fine job. Ball 1 to Whitaker.
So Tony La Russa forced to get his stopper up in the bullpen now. Sure he didn't want to do that after Bob James pitched last night.
Line drive and a base hit that'll score 2 more. It's going to be a 7-4 ball game.
This is why he's got him up, too.
And if Trammell gets on board, the tying run will come to the plate in the person of Gibson.
Well, they were talking before the ball game. Beta Pinson was one. Sparky Anderson around the batting cage. When the game's on the line, pick a player you want up there in a tough situation. And this wasn't exactly a game-winning hit. But they all said probably Lou Whitaker, especially this year, the way he's swinging. Fallon, the left-hander. Bob James, hard-throwing right-hander throwing. So they forced the stopper to get up. Here comes La Russa.
Lou Whitaker started the day at a league-leading 344. He's gone 1 for 3. Also been hit by a pitch and drawn a walk.
Now, remember a ball game in this same city last year where you and I picked, he hit for the cycle, driven in about 6 runs. You'll never forget this game, neither will I.
I was thinking of it.
We picked Spillner leaves. We picked McGee. And what did Sandberg do to Suter? Hit 2 home runs. We had to change. There's the score as James comes on.
Bob James needs 1 out to finish it for the White Sox and secure the victory for Rich Dotson. James is the 5th White Sox hurler today. Dotson, Augusto, Nelson, Spillner, and now James.
A very, very hard thrower who at times has trouble throwing strikes. If you believe radar guns, he's been clocked at 95. Also has what Tony La Russa calls his paralyzer. When he gets ahead of you and he throws that curveball, if he can throw it for strikes, it is tough to swing at.
Behind Sid Fernandez, the Mets beat the Phillies 4-0, and what an encouraging game that has to be for Davey Johnson. So this inning began with the White Sox leading 7-1. It's 7-4 now, and suddenly this becomes technically a save situation. If James gets them out of this inning, he'll get credit for the save. whereas Spillner would not have. But as James comes in, technically the tying run, potential tying run, is in the on-deck circle, and that's all that you need to have happen to qualify for a save.
It's still early in the season, only game number 25 for the White Sox. They have just 3 saves out of their bullpen. James has got them all.
1-1. Now James is a strike away.
Now, does Markell stick with the fastball?
We welcome those of you who watched the Mets shut out the Phillies here in Chicago. Bob Costas and Tony Kubek. 2 out, 9th inning. 1-2 on Trammell, and that's it. You came to us to see one pitch, a swing and a miss. Bob James comes out of the bullpen, strikes him out, records the save. Rich Dotson is the winner. He's 1-1. Juan Berenguer, the loser. He's 1-2.
Well, they saw one pitch from the 5th pitcher. Dotson was brilliant, and Baines, well, he was just Harold Baines again today with 3 base hits, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored.
So the Tigers scored 3 times on the top of the 9th, but come up short. Couldn't quite get that tying run to the plate. The White Sox win it 7-4 and snap Detroit's 5-game winning streak. Pending the outcome of the Orioles game tonight against the Twins, the Tigers have fallen a full game back of the Orioles in the American League East, and the White Sox climb over 500 at 13-12. For Tony Kubek, I'm Bob Costas. Stay tuned for the second half of our doubleheader right after these messages on NBC. So long, everybody.